Okay, we are live. It is Sunday. Oop, looks like we are. Okay, we are live. It is Sunday. I need to look at the date. August 6th. 6th. So, if you're watching the replay on YouTube, timestamps will be in the description for your readings and for the full Tana mode message. And beyond that, we will just hang out while people show up for the live today. Hey, Leo, good to see ya. Excuse me. It's good to see you too. All right, so I am. Funny enough, for those of you showing up, I guess I'll tell a quick story. What would be good for me to talk about here? I don't know. Sometimes before the lives, I'll kind of go through. I don't know if you want to call it a ramp up period or if I'll be like just feeling the people who are going to be showing up for the lives. But sometimes I go through like a really intense the period before the lives. So I'm curious who's going to show up or what's going to happen. Love your full channel post. Awesome. I'm so glad to hear it. Thanks, Dragana. Good to see you. And I'm glad to hear you love the full channel post, Leo Diaz. That's good. Because I'm kind of pivoting in that direction, it seems. So I'm glad it's going well for you guys as well. Well, I don't know if hopefully it's going well for everyone, but at least for you and I'm sure a lot of other people. But yeah, we'll see who shows up today, how this goes, what's gonna happen. Hey, Gabby. Yep, we are just starting. We are just signing on and giving people the chance to show up and hanging out for a second before we dive into anything here. Yeah, you're welcome, Rice. All Rice. We will see. Hi, Olivia. Yeah, so I think for the Angelic Fires group, I'm just not going to do it on Facebook. I don't know why it didn't work. I didn't do anything to my knowledge that would make it not work. I think I have a solution, so I'll probably send out another email when I have that more put in place to everybody. So I realize I haven't got back to everybody on that quite yet. Hey, Manon. If I'm saying that right, how are you doing? Oh, that's awesome, Dragana. Yeah. We'll see what comes through for you. Well, for the readings, and see how it helps you out. Okay. Maybe I should have more things ready to talk about in the beginning before we do jump into the readings. We haven't done any readings yet. We have literally just signed on. And I'm just gathering my signs over here for the readings here. Yeah, so you are here in time. Hey, baby doll, good to see you. Janine, perfect timing. Perfect. Happy Sunday, Christian. How does it get any better than this? Do you having any in-person events, classes, healing appointments? Yeah, I pretty much haven't been doing anything in person. It's been over the phone or Zoom for so I maybe I'll do things in person in a while, but right now I'm just keeping it more cost effective, if that makes sense. I have not set up a PO box because I honestly might be moving again soon, so I'm not sure about where to set one up if that makes sense yet. So we'll see about that. But I'll let you guys know if I get one set up or something like that here. Yeah, I do tend to. It's funny that you say that, Marina. You say such a nomad. I've had multiple different like readers kind of speak to. Not that I'm literally a nomad, like I'm wandering the desert and spearing scorpions for dinner or whatever, but just speaking to that kind of tendency, maybe in life a little bit, if that makes sense, where people have kind of called me a nomad before, in different words sometimes, but not a bad thing necessarily. A gypsy then, perhaps. I'm not sure. Nomad is like usually the word people would use, or they'd say something that sounded like a nomad. I don't know how you say it. They might even just speak to like, oh, you'll be moving over here, then moving over here, then moving over here. Or they might say something different that is similar to the notion, but without using any kind of like maybe necessarily descriptive word like that. With furniture, yeah. Hey, Ruda, good to see ya. Thanks, Marina. Fully for the highest good is always my intention. Okay, so I am getting the go-ahead to start the collective reading today. It might be a little bit shorter, but we'll see. So I'm going to put this sign up. Give me 1 second here. Cool. I noticed in the last live there would be moments where I'd like pause to like sit with like an energy that was like showing up, or set some intentions, and then my eyes didn't close all the way, and so it kind of showed my eye whites. I'm like, oh, that looks pretty bad. That probably creeps some people out. I'm gonna be a bit more intentional about not doing that, because it's like I'm fine. It just looks like there was an issue that wasn't there. So, sorry, I don't even know if I should have talked about that. But for the collective reading here, this is for meant to be for everyone here when you see it, essentially. So whether you're here live or watching a replay on YouTube. So we're just going to sit with the channel messages that are coming through while we're doing the reading, pretty much. I didn't channel anything through ahead of time. And I've kind of liked how the readings have gone when I just flowed with the messages coming through, and I've been guided to do that a bit more. So we're just going to keep doing that. And it also saves me an hour of channeling before even doing the live and channeling more. So I think it works out well. So first thing they're showing for this collective reading here today is an alligator. Actually, that spirit animal is showing up here. What I'm getting as a message first and foremost is being ferocious in making changes. So I think sometimes when we are not sure what to do, and it's okay to be in that stage sometimes, when we're not sure what to do, because the right thing will unveil itself at the right time. But what this is pretty much saying is like when we know what to do and what changes to make and what direction to go, it's like go. Pretty much. Like usually when alligator shows up, what I get are messages about being like, it's usually in a positive way, but being ferocious in like moving towards something, whether it's your dreams or your targets. And in this instance, it's about being ferocious when you know what changes to make and what direction to go. So you don't need to like force ferocity into your actions if you're still kind of sitting with what pathway to take right now. But once it's unveiled to you, like, oh, you need to go in this direction, it's like, okay, make those changes, like take those action steps. Because they're giving me the word timid. I don't feel like it's a time to be timid. I think it's okay if you're timid a little bit or uncertain a little bit sometimes with things. But again, when you know, take action. That is pretty much what alligator is saying. There's a little bit more with alligator as well, though, before we move to the next thing. They were kind of talking about the alligator's like skin as well as its like teeth. So let me sit with this for a second here. There is a reminder not to be too ferocious with other people in your life. A lot of people are learning and growing like you are, even if they're in different phases or parts of their journey or on completely different paths. And that doesn't mean like be too nice to like, someone who's being narcissistic towards you or trying to do something negative towards you or bring you down or something like that. Like you could still have healthy boundaries and things like that. But sometimes, and I'm not saying all of you are doing this, but if this resonates for you as something that maybe would be good to examine and adjust, sometimes we snap a little bit more with people than maybe we should, or like a loved one. So do your best to kind of keep that in check and realize in some capacity we kind of are all on this journey on earth together, and it doesn't always make sense to snap, even if what's the best way to say this, we feel like it. Does that make sense? So next message they'd like to get to, they're showing me a banana. This banana is being peeled. The message is like it's time to shine, or in some capacity, and they might have more nuance to this message as well, but be on stage. And what they kind of mean by this is like time to put yourself out there. Even if you're like newer to something and you'd like to try some skills out, it doesn't mean you need to throw yourself to the wolves and be like, like for example, the example that's coming to me is like, it doesn't mean it's like, oh, I'm learning about intuition for 1 hour. I've learned it for 1 hour. Now I'm going to put myself on TikTok. It's like, that might be a little bit extreme, but doing if you have been doing intuition for a while, I'm not trying to discourage you from posting at all, but like maybe doing a reading for a friend, being intuitive for a friend, like trying out someone. If you have an intuitive friend, be like, hey, I'm just learning intuition myself. Do you think we could like exchange like a reading or try a card reading, see how this goes so I can practice and try this out a bit more. But it could mean you're ready to go on stage and put yourself out there to some capacity with a skill you've been working on, or there was another like sense I was getting with the message with like putting yourself out there. But I need to sit with it for one more second to see what the message is here. Like it could also be time to like speak up in a situation and be like, have the spotlight on you in that capacity, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what I'm getting with the banana being peeled. And by being peeled, it's like the banana's not being exposed, but it's being put in the spotlight. Like you can see past the peel of the banana, if that makes sense. So kind of time to be in the spotlight in some way, whether you're speaking up or you're putting yourself out there in some capacity. Next, they're showing me a dragon. There might be a lot of worry running around in this collective right now, just about the world, about your personal circumstances. Kind of a common like theme is what I'm saying. Dragon is saying like you're divinely protected and like a lot of your worries are unfounded. Like if you think of a dragon, it is protected. It has these thick scales that keep it protected from damage. It's like fireproof. Usually it breathes fire. So it's not really going to get hurt, but it's like really worried about what is going to happen to it, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of getting like, you don't need to worry. Does that mean that nothing you don't like is ever going to happen? Probably not, if that makes sense. But a lot of times I think we're a lot safer on our journey than we realize. Unless we are expressly like getting the message that we're not and we need to stay clear from a certain path, that's a little bit different. But if we're doing everything we're supposed to do, we're doing our best, we're following our guidance, you're probably safe and fine, honestly, is kind of the message. So, and like the other like thing that's kind of popping in, it's not like a direct like message, but it's like just, it's like an inkling that's kind of showing up in the background as I'm saying this, is like, oftentimes like something my guides have said a lot is like, if you look at things from like the etheric perspective and like way up high, or from like a source perspective, it's kind of like, everyththing's like safe, in a certain extent. It's like when you die, it's like you go back to source. It's not like, there's anything out there like hunting your soul or something like that. Yeah, and then my body pendulum verifies that as I'm saying that. It's like not like you have to like fight for your life when you like die or anything like that, or there's anything like out to get you per se when you die. Um, that I've gotten a message about or been aware of, honestly. So it's like even on this journey, like you are safe, and like in the etheric, you are like much safer than you realize, I suppose, is the way I'm getting to say it. So sometimes we'll like have this inkling or this fear that we're in danger, and it could just be a lot of human stuff you're picking up on from other people or religious fear. Probably one of the main things you need to worry about on that front, honestly, when it comes to fear of the etheric. I'm not saying we shouldn't be discerning, by the way, but you understand, hopefully. So just realize you're safer than you realize. When you die, you go back to source. What I'm hearing is it's a much more pleasant experience than you realize. So I'm not trying to be morbid or anything like that. I think it's just our fear only extends so far and is only warranted to a certain extent. I believe it's intended to be a mechanism to keep us alive as well. So I think if it's always firing, that probably means like something needs to shift, honestly, because it's just not usually warranted for most circumstances. So just keep that in mind. Like even if you're worrying a lot, like you could be picking up on other people. It could be a story that's running from your past where maybe your body is trying to keep you safe based on certain past experiences, if that makes sense. But it might be time to kind of sit with that and be like, am I actually in danger, or is everything actually going to be okay and I don't need to worry so much? Again, like I feel like you're a lot more divinely protected than you realize. You don't need to worry if you've been worrying quite as much as you have been. So hopefully that is all helpful to hear. The next thing, they're kind of going back to alligator as well as crocodile, back to those spirit animals. Whale spirit animal is also showing up for a strange trifecta, but we'll get to that in a second. With crocodile, alligator, going back to that here. What they're showing is like they're showing these creatures swimming under the water, and they're saying like there's a lot more going on under the surface than you realize right now, like in your life. You might be looking at the surface of a situation and being like, oh, I'm messing up, like, oh, I'm doing so badly, oh, I really messed this up, or something like that. And it's like there's all this stuff conspiring under the surface to get you going in a certain direction and like move you in the right direction. So your mistake could be the thing that propels you to exactly where you need to go. Now, you can ask for grace with this. It doesn't have to be negatively life-altering or like a huge life blow-up or anything like that, but sometimes there's so much more going on under the surface of our lives and maybe reality even than we realize, and we think we're at fault for everything. And sometimes certain situations maybe we are but sometimes there's a reason things are always, but there's a reason things are transpiring a certain way that goes beyond like blaming yourself or other people. Not to take responsibility or accountability out of the equation, but hopefully you understand what is kind of coming through for this one. So try not to beat up on yourself if certain things aren't going your way, or certain things should be going a certain way to your mind and they're not, etc., if that makes sense. Because there could be certain things going on under the surface to cause other people to act a certain way or to bring you certain lessons so you can do better in the future, etc. Is kind of what they're saying with that one. So not a negative thing, perhaps. I know if you think of alligators or crocodiles under the water, your first thought might be danger under the water, but not what I'm getting with this message per se, actually. In this instance, the alligators and crocodiles are working in your favor here, of course. And usually when spirit animals show up and it's in the form of spirit animal, it's usually always like a very positive leaning message, or it's like those spirit animals are working in your favor, of course. Like the divine is rarely working against us. And if it is, it's because we're really doing something not cool. So I hopefully that's not any of you or anything like that. And if you're following your divine guidance to the best of your ability, it's not going to be. But even then, to share a perspective, even if you feel like it's working against you, it could still be in your favor, in the sense of the divine is teaching you to work with it and to realize maybe some of the things someone like that is doing is not cool, and like giving them a chance to get on the same page through the lesson they're gaining through that. So it's not really against you. It's more like maybe taking someone like that to school, if that makes sense, and trying to get them on board. And there could be a bit more nuance to all that as well, but let's move on, because that's a whole other conversation, I think, unless they want to talk to it. So what else would be fast good to get to here? They showed me a balloon next, and they made the word rise. And you know, like the house from Up, where it has a ton of balloons tied to it, and it's rising. Of course, they're showing that, but it's like a person or like you. And like we are all in this collective, the message I'm getting, being risen up. And when I say we, I guess I'm including myself, because I guess the message applies to me as well, in the collective reading. But being risen up, and sometimes there are certain layers we need to shed as we're rising, and it looks disconcerting, or like we messed up sometimes when we start shedding a lot, and maybe there's a lot of fear-based thoughts, or like things that rise to the surface to be released, or stories. But it is actually in our favor, because it's causing us to ascend, or it's part of the ascension process, or just elevating if you don't like the word ascension. I know there are some people who are perhaps really awesome that talk about ascension, and there are some people who are... I've had some not as great experiences with certain people who talk about ascension as well, so I understand sometimes... Not to put this out there, it can be a mixed bag with the people facilitating about those things, but bear with me. Really what I'm getting to with this message is you might be shedding a lot, but you're going higher, and pretty soon you'll be out of the shedding and into more of like a ease and grace period with it, unless there are other like lessons or things you need. The main message is that you're going higher, and sometimes there's a process involved with that, so hang in there. Eventually, like, you will get to a good place with all that. And even if like certain physical circumstances are there conspiring to create the release or the shedding, because sometimes it's all interwoven. It's not just everything's fine and dandy in the physical and we're just sobbing in our bedroom. Sometimes it's there are things in the physical correlating with the rising or the ascension that's happening to get us to release or shed. So sometimes it is a bit all interwoven, and it's not just all separated out from each other, if that makes sense. And I think sometimes it's tempting to judge things as separate when they're not. So be a little bit mindful of that as a reminder I'm getting as well. Try to see how it's all interwoven, if that makes sense. So one more message for this is what I'm getting. They're showing me this dessert. It wasn't a specific dessert. It was never anything I'd seen in person before, what they showed me originally, but it turned into like a cream pie, I guess. And that's meant to be the literal physical pie that you bake in the oven, for anyone who needs that clarification. But let me see what the message is on that one. So the good news is that there is like sweetness on the rise for this crowd, or like sweeter experiences, especially if things have been a bit more bitter. And you know, sometimes the like plant medicine or certain medicine that we get is a little bit bitter. You know, some kids don't like the medicine they're forced to drink because it tastes bad, or sometimes we don't like the medicine we're forced to drink because it is a little bit bitter, even if the effects are astoundingly great. So I feel like after certain like bitter periods, maybe you all have went through, whether this is you now or the recent past, there is like more sweetness coming to balance out maybe some of the bitter medicine some of us have been receiving, like maybe from the divine, if that makes sense. Even if we didn't like the bitter medicine, or some of the things that have happened. So there is more sweetness coming in for this crowd and like our experiences, whether it's it could show up of course in so many different ways. It could be a stranger on the street, it could be coworkers at work being really sweet to us, it could be a loved one, it could be from all angles. So it could be literal, where the universe sends you a maybe your mom mails you a pie, or like like sometimes there's those companies that send you the frozen like goods or baked goods, and people can mail them to you and you bake it yourself or something. I don't know, as an example, but it could come from any angle. So I just feel like that's coming in maybe after a bitter period, or some of the bitterness that's been transpiring, probably as medicine is what I'm getting for the collective. So I'm getting no more for the collective. I hope that resonated, was helpful, did whatever was for your highest good. There might be one more that as they go to close it out, they're showing me like bismuth, like the crystal. It's usually a man-made kind of metal that is created, and it's rainbowy, and it has these really cool angular designs to it. And what they're showing for you is you being expanded out and turned colorful, if that makes sense. So I guess like sometimes I've kind of been saying this a little bit in multiple ways today, but when someone's okay, I'm going to use this example because bismuth, when it's created, is put in the oven and it's baked, and then it becomes this really cool, beautiful thing. And that might be happening to you in some ways, where maybe you don't like the oven, maybe you don't like the heat that the universe is applying, but you are expanding and potentially being turned into something amazing. So try not to look at not that all of you are in a difficult period, hopefully, but if you are, like, try not to look at it as just a difficult period. Like, look at the process that might be transpiring. And like, it might even be like quicker if you just kind of accept it in some ways, instead of like fighting against it or resisting it. I know sometimes that's difficult. But whether it's easy for you or difficult for you or what, there is this like expansion happening to you, where you're kind of maybe even being forced out of your shell, forced into new things. You're becoming more of what you meant to be through this process. So hang in there. You're becoming a colorful and beautiful crystal, if that makes sense. Excuse the pause. So I'm going to close that collective reading. We're going to move to the fire signs in just a second, but I'm going to hang out before we do that. So we're going to move on here. Hope that was helpful. Thanks for the reminder, Marina. Camera is flipped. Appreciate it. I don't know why I forget. I've been doing these lives now for like 2.5 years, and for some reason, like the unmirroring the camera still slips my mind sometimes. So thanks for the reminders, guys. I know I don't always read the comments when I'm in the middle of a reading. And sometimes that can be a little bit distracting because I'm in the middle of reading and flowing with the messages. And then if I see like a question or if, sometimes people jump into the lives, and without inviting this now, by the way, people are just kind of being a butt. And so I just don't need that extra input while I'm in the middle of channeling messages for people sometimes. It was the collective reading, Olivia. Been feeling nonstop pressure on whole school the last few days. Are those some upgrades? Or yeah, I would also just take time to rest too. If it becomes a lot, is what I'd say. For some reason, what I'm getting is it could be assigned to rest, interestingly enough, just with some of the other things going on. I'm not sure. Doesn't mean a bad thing is happening, by the way. I also feel like it could be like you're processing something, interestingly enough, as well as like the upgrade. I think this is a really interesting question. Mylin asks, is it possible to accidentally bring negative energy by just talking about it? Um, I was kind of hearing not really. The first instance I read your comment there. I'm actually intuitively weirdly on the fence about this because I think it depends on how you go about it and your intention in talking about it. Um, I'd say it's probably pretty difficult to inadvertently bring that in by talking about it. And I think it's important to not be afraid about talking about what you need to talk about, if that makes sense. But if you are starting to feel really weird when you do start talking about it, probably stop talking about it, is what I'd say. One of the experiences I've had that's been tricky to navigate is well, let me see what they'd actually like me to talk about here, because they're redirecting me a little bit as we go to talk about it. I mean, maybe sometimes you'll start to kind of feel certain like energies show up when you start to talk about certain things like that, and at that point you might just feel called to change the topic, honestly, is what I'm getting. But sometimes there are times where you need to like talk to those things, or about them with someone, to like have a conversation you need to have or to address certain things. So don't be afraid if you need to talk about it. Does that make sense? Oh, it's funny. I've been feeling bitter and treated myself to key lime and feel better the next day. I feel like that's synchronistic with the reading in some way. Um, whew. So we'll probably start the fire signs reading soon. Marina, extra tired these last 2 weeks. Yeah, I definitely recommend resting for sure. I mean, there is a lot of collective shifting going on. I almost want to say there kind of always is, though, but maybe it's just hitting a little harder than normal. um, been horizontal for weeks, I hear you. There is a lot going on. And like, this crowd is also like upgrading, is something I'm hearing now as well. I think that came through in some of the channels and like readings I've been doing. So it doesn't surprise me right now. There is like a lot going on with that. So rest if you need to, is what I'd say. Okay, I'm going to start the fire signs reading, so we're going to do that. Okay, so if you have a fire sign, sun, moon, rising, this is for you when you see it. We're going to delve into the channel messages coming through for you as I just kind of flow with the reading. So we'll see what flows through for you. Give me 1 second to sit with it, though. The first message I have for you, they're showing me like this like lizard or reptile. And it's like a gecko, honestly. It's funny because they're showing me the Geico gecko as well here. So let me sit with the reptile for just a second to see what the message is. So you might be like, because the first thing that they're showing me is like this gecko like scurrying away as if from like a predator, but you might be scurrying away from things that you don't need to scurry away from. Like you might be afraid in a certain situation in your relationship, or like you're afraid to speak up, but it's like actually totally safe to do so, if that makes sense. And like maybe people in the past used to bludgeon you if you brought something up, like past partners as an example. But it's actually like safe to bring up an issue you're having or face certain things that are going on, like at work, for example. So be sure to speak up if you feel called to, or like your guides are telling you to, and you're feeling nervous or something like that. I feel like it's safe. Definitely do your due diligence. Utilize your awareness and discernment with that. But there might be certain things you're tempted to run away from right now that you actually don't need to. It's like they're totally safe, and it's just like your past patterns kind of rearing their heads that are like encouraging you to run away when you don't need to. So just keep that in mind. especially if you know it's a safe situation. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm getting with that one first and foremost. You also might be running from things you need to do, like certain like tasks or certain conversations you need to have, certain emails you need to send. It's kind of time to turn around and face the ones you're ready to face. Maybe not all of them, if there's certain ones that like really scare you, but there might be certain tasks you need to do that will really move you forward. And if like you don't run from them, it really helps you out. So that's the other message I'm getting with the lizard or the gecko kind of scurrying away from things as well. The other thing with this gecko is it is going to be fed. I feel like the other side, and we'll get into what this means more specifically for you as well, but this gecko is like afraid of not having food. But it has like plenty of food. It has plenty of what it needs, or it will be served to it by the universe. So you also might be afraid of like running out of certain things in your life or running out of things you need. I don't feel like you will, honestly, especially as long as you're doing everything you need to be doing. I definitely don't be dumb right now or anything like that. It's my disclaimer, which you probably don't need, honestly. I feel like you're all doing your best and all that. But like part of the reason in certain situations you might be tempted to run away is because you might be afraid of like running out of something, or you might be afraid of your abundance running dry or something like that. But I don't feel like it's going to for you. So that's another message for you regarding this gecko as well. The next message for you guys, sorry for the pause there. Let me see what they like to. So dragons showing up for the fire signs as well. Dragons love to show up for these readings. Dragon showed up for the collective as well. But it's like this black dragon. And he's really, as dragons do, guarding this treasure in this like tall tower. He looks very intimidating and scary. He almost looks evil, but he's not at all, interestingly enough. He's actually like a test for you is what I'm hearing in this visual. And I'm going to need to explain this a bit more probably. So let me sit with this for a second and see what's going on with this dragon. So there might be certain things you are forced to overcome right now. Certain, again, I hesitate to use the word metaphorical, like demons you need to face, not literal. Probably, honestly, is what I'm saying. For this crowd, not literal is what I'm getting to say. Like certain things you need to heal, certain things that appear scary, like an obstacle you need to face, or a leap of faith you need to take if you feel called to a leap of faith. But this dragon is, I don't like the word test, honestly. I know like a lot of people use the word test. To me, it's like the universe already kind of knows most everything, if not everything. So why would it need to test us? It kind of already knows where we're at, what we need, etc. But in this instance, it's like helping you overcome something, or it could be a lesson for the future, you overcoming this thing. So what exactly is this dragon like representing here? There might be something you really desire, like a treasure, or it's a treasure within you that you're unlocking for yourself, whether it's like your gifts or a direction you're meant to go on. And it's kind of just asking like, are you ready to like face the dragon, to face certain fears? And I don't feel like it's going to be anything that's overtly like terrifying or like overwhelmingly like terrifying. It's like little things that you feel like you're not ready to face that you actually are, if that makes sense. And like if you're willing to overcome and like face this dragon, it's not even an evil dragon. It's like they're more just like to test your mettle, if that makes sense. It's there more to ask like, are you really ready to have this thing? And can you face this thing in order to have it? If you're willing to overcome certain like fears or things that appear like tests right now, you can have the treasure, if that makes sense. And again, it might not be as bad as you realize or as bad as you think. It could just be you're afraid of taking this leap of faith, but you're really feeling the push from the universe to do it. And then you do it and you can have the treasure, if that makes sense. Kind of a simplified way of looking at it. But that's kind of what that is saying is like, there might be certain things you're afraid to do them, but you're feeling called to do them and just do them anyways, essentially. And there's that quote. They don't want me to bring it in. I was going to say feel the fear and do it anyways, but maybe that's not the appropriate thing to say right now. But let's move on here. There is a lot of treasure for you. You just might need to face certain things to unlock it, to get to the castle and have that treasure. I don't think you actually literally need to defeat dragons in order to have it. They're more just there as like, are you ready to face this, to have the treasure? So if you're willing to face your fears, face certain things, maybe they're challenges, put yourself out there, take certain leaps of faith, whatever it is for you, you can have the treasure. And it's there for you. It's waiting. It's yours. I don't think anyone else can come up and steal this for you. Like, I feel like it's meant for you. It's just like, at the right time, you'll face this and have this treasure, but I feel like soon will be the time, if not now. So try to do certain things you normally wouldn't do that are aligned and for the highest good and healthy, of course. If you're feeling stumped at how to achieve certain targets or achieve certain things in life you'd like to achieve, it might just be on the other side of something you haven't tried before that might be a little bit nerve-wracking for you to try. Like posting on social media, if you've never posted on social media as an example. And I feel like you'll be steered towards these things you need to do if you're racking your brain and you're like, I don't know what this is. So be a little bit patient with that. But that's kind of what I'm getting with that is trying some of the things that aren't like destructive, that would be healthy, but you're afraid to try them, if that makes sense. Next, I know a banana showed up for the collective, but it's showing up for the fire signs as well. And the visual they're showing me is hilarious. And I wish I could just express these to you more clearly, because it's like this banana is being peeled and it's almost like a cartoon. And then it's being like held up to the sun and it's like being exposed is essentially what they're showing. And this banana is like, it's like being exposed to the sun. I didn't really like Robot Chicken on, I forget what show or network that was on, and that might be a little bit more obscure for some of you, but it reminds me of like a skit from that kind of show where it's pretty ridiculous. But anyways, it's about you being like exposed a little bit, and again, you might be afraid to put yourself out there or be exposed, but I feel like you need to be seen if you're being exposed by the universe. And this isn't like, I don't feel like this is a negative message, by the way, where it's like, oh, your wicked ways are being exposed. Like if some of you need that, maybe, but I don't feel like that's this crowd, honestly, like, who are doing things like that need to be exposed for you to change or anything like that. Rather, for most of you, what I'm more getting for this message is you either putting yourself out there in some way and it's really nerve-wracking, or trying something new and it's really nerve-wracking because you're like hesitant to be exposed, or this banana is like being exposed to the sun and being held up to the sun and close to the sun in there. But I feel like it's actually where you're meant to be, is either more in the limelight right now or soon, whether it's in a smaller stage or a bigger stage, whether it's in your personal life, like at work, or it's more on like social media or somewhere on stage, literally somewhere. So you might be like afraid of being exposed, but it's actually the right direction. And there's like nothing to be afraid of is what I'd say as well with all that. Because the banana is meant to be a banana, whether it is peeled or unpeeled. It like doesn't change what is inside the banana, whether it's peeled or not. It's just kind of showing what's there, and what's there could be very beautiful, for you. So maybe it's a treasure banana and you peel back the banana and it's a banana of gold. I don't know. Silly example, but you kind of understand what I'm kind of getting at anyways. And most people know when you look at a banana peel, if it's going to be like a ripe banana or not. Most people kind of already know. It's just kind of sometimes it's just exposing what people already knew. So is like a weird message. Sometimes we're hiding things that people kind of already know about, and it's just like, oh, I was fine the whole time. So, but again, this is more about you putting yourself out there. So don't be afraid to try new things and be exposed. I feel like you'll be fine, is what I'm getting with this crowd. And if you're not fine for some reason, you'll be fine in the future. It'll teach you something valuable, and it'll lead you in the right direction somehow. Next thing they're showing me, sometimes I get a little bit self-conscious when like Pokemon show up for the readings, but it's what's showing up. So there's this, and I used to play Pokemon like a ton growing up. Yeah, even in like my teenage years and things like that. I don't play it as much anymore, more recently, but what they're kind of showing is this like rock type Pokemon. It doesn't look like a spider. I'm going to have a heck of a time trying to explain this to you guys, but let me see what the message is and we'll see if this makes sense here. But the message for you guys is things are becoming solid for you. If you think of like rock solid, things are becoming like sturdy, and you have that coming in. So maybe some of you have felt like you've been standing on quicksand a little bit. Like if you stay still for too long, you start sinking, or things have just been like changing under your feet, and you're just like doing your best to dance with life and stay on the surface and stay afloat, if that makes sense. I feel like you're hitting solid ground soon or in the near future, where maybe you're feeling more solid with a routine or financially, or in some level that's been more like you're standing on quicksand. So I feel like where things have been a little bit shaky, they're not going to be shaky for you much longer, which is good, like in the next while. So hopefully that's helpful to hear. And we can, I don't know, that's just what they were showing. If you were curious about what rock Pokemon was showing up, it's something, I think it's called like Boldor, but it's like spelled weird. So you can look that up, or if you're a nerd, you might know what that is, and you're like, yes, the Pokemon reference fuels me. So maybe you were into that, but let's move on here. The next thing they're showing me is, I guess they're getting me over this thing here with using these examples, but they're showing me this older rock type Pokemon, which was Onix, and I'm just gonna let my nerd flag fly here for a second. But growing up, Onix was like really cool. You know, when you're like 7, you're like, yeah, this thing is like the coolest thing. It's like this rock snake with boulders, whatever. But anyways, what the message is for you as far as this showing up here, funny enough, actually, is old school making a return, but in like a positive, like upgraded, healthy way. So you might be called back to certain things in the past that you've done before, and it could be like art or a hobby, or it could be certain friends circling back around, but they're like upgraded versions. They've actually done the work. Or maybe it's new people that remind you of people that used to be in your life, and they're the upgraded versions of those old people, and you're getting that replacement. But I feel like you do have certain things circling back from the past that are like a blast from the past, but it's like an upgraded version, and it's actually like healthy for you to interact with this thing. So again, hobby could be people for some of you, old or new, that reminds you of the old. Could be, I don't know, maybe some of you are going back to an old job or an old way of doing certain things, or an old passion, but I feel like it's a good move. So not a bad thing is what I'd say with that one. I actually feel like that's kind of it for this reading here. There is a lion showing up, and of course the Lion's Gate is in a couple days, I believe, on Tuesday. I actually am doing like a live, but it's on YouTube. Not here, for whatever reason they had me do that for the Lion's Gate. So I'm going to be doing like a full channel mode thing, and maybe a channel guided meditation, but you can, I mean, this should be reposted on YouTube probably as well. So you can subscribe there if you feel called. I repost all the lives here, and we'll see what other content I am guided to put up there as we go forward. But Tuesday in the evening, I'll be doing a live there as well. But as far as why the lion is showing up beyond that here, I do feel like things are being for the highest good. open for you, like certain, funny enough, gates or certain pathways, especially if they've been closed for a long time and you've been to traverse like a certain pathway. Like you may have been wanting to start a certain business or do a certain thing, and like now is like finally the time where certain doors for the highest good open for you to do that. So I would kind of jump on certain opportunities that present themselves that are things you've always wanted to do, which could be that blast from the past thing as well that we just talked about, like that opportunity finally coming around for you to do something you've always wanted to do, or to fulfill an old dream that is resurfacing, or old desire, something like that. So certain things for the highest good are opening up for you. So I would keep a lookout for that. And don't be afraid of old paths that rear their heads again. Some of them are meant to be traversed. Not all old things are bad, which that's just kind of what I'm getting for you. And maybe you'll have a mixture of new and old things coming in, but just make sure that if it feels right to you intuitively and is a good idea, that even if it's like an older thing, you move towards what you feel guided to move towards, if that makes sense. So I'm going to close the reading there. They're showing me this candy as well as I go to part ways, like a rock candy or like a hard candy. And what I'm hearing is you do have rewards for like past efforts or like long-term things or projects maybe you put time into. And sometimes when you have a project that's been long-term, you've been putting a lot of time into it, and it gets put on hold by the universe or stopped and you're shuffled to something else, you still get the rewards from that thing you put the work into. One thing I've heard that I really like, it was from Lee Harris, who's a channeler, and I try to give credit where credit is due, is like, if you put a lot of work into something and it gets stopped and you get shuffled to something else, it's like the universe will bank that work for you. And maybe it'll show up where like a lot of that work you put into that shows up in the new work you're doing in some way, or you still get paid for that work in some way by the universe or rewarded for it. So if there are things you've never been rewarded for that you've put effort into or time into, even aside from just the obvious rewards of like, oh, I got experience and oh, I learned this lesson and things like that. And those can be great and very important for the future as well, because there are definitely failed business attempts or podcasts or endeavors that I've undertaken that have served me well now. And even in like the past with things I'm doing now that maybe I wouldn't be able to, well, what's the best way to say this here? Maybe it's allowed me to do what I'm doing now more easily, or allowed me to build my current business more easily, or things in the past leading up to it. So, I mean, always in those regards, we don't need to poo-poo our experiences or what we're gaining from it. But sometimes we also get very external rewards, or the work is banked for us again in a way that work pays off. I'm not explaining it right. I'm having trouble at conveying exactly what I'm trying to convey, but hopefully just saying the universe banks it for us is enough, and you'll understand, or you'll see how it plays out in your future and be like, oh, I get it now. So maybe that'll be enough. But last thing, again, they want to bring in the reminder again, is that like things are going to be solid for you. You might feel like you're on shaky ground, but like there is stability and bounds, if that makes sense, for a lot of you. So hang in there. Okay, so that's it for the fire signs. We're going to move on to the earth signs in a second here and hang out with the chat. And we will move on to, the next reading in a second here. I've finally been approved to take an exam. I've been waiting years. Got perfect. That's awesome. You are welcome, Tammy Firefly. Sorry. Bless me. Sorry. I got into a weird habit of saying bless me to myself when I sneeze, because there was a period of time where I had a job where I worked like by myself, kind of like secluded from people. which at the time was something I kind of desired because my sensitivity was ramping up like huge time. So being in my own energies was such a blessing at the time. But I would get in the habit of saying "bless me" to myself if I sneezed. Thank you. Sharing my writing and ideas can definitely make me feel like an exposed banana. Phrase of the week. You're welcome, Lisa. Thank you, Mary Ma. I've not read the Earth Signs yet, so that'll be next. I've not done water signs yet. So we've done fire signs and the collective readings, so we still have earth, air, water. Full channel mode message if we do that today, or maybe we'll do something different like a channel guided meditation. We'll see what they have me do, but we'll see. We'll get to that bridge when we get to that bridge. Yeah, of course. Normally I hang out a bit more with chat between readings. Being in dating apps for sure, it feels like being an exposed banana. I hear you. I hear you. Just screaming at the sun. You're welcome, Dragana. I hope that was helpful. They would like me to start earth signs, so I might give it one more second before we start. Excuse me while I... man, you'd think after like a couple years you'd be more used to like imbibing things and eating things with like a mustache and like beard thing going on, but it still happens where like you drink something and it's just like so okay, we're gonna start the earth signs. So if you have an earth sign, sun, moon, rising, this will be for you when you see it. So we're just gonna flow with the channel messages coming through. Excuse me. First thing they're showing me is this tractor, like a farm tractor. Again, I'm instantly just getting rewards for your work, honestly, like kind of like farming. And then like your harvest finally pays off or comes in. So a lot of harvest coming in the next few months for you. And like keep it in mind, maybe like bookmark that message and put it in your back pocket and look at it in 3 months. It may or may not be like tomorrow, but there is more reward coming in for your past efforts. And maybe you don't see it that way right now. Maybe you feel like the universe has been skimpy with you and like rewarding your work, but it will pay off, like is what I'm hearing. Try not to get upset or mad. If you don't feel like you're getting your due right now, it will come in. Like trust it is kind of what I'm getting. Next thing they're showing me is a cheetah. It's about things speeding up and like you moving forward more. If you feel like you've been in idle, kind of like a boat or a vehicle in idle, just kind of sitting there, it is time to put things in gear, or the universe will be putting in things in gear or forcing you in gear is kind of what I'm getting, especially if you've been idle lately. Sometimes we have those periods of time. There's like nothing wrong with that. It's like it's okay to rest and allow yourself to catch up with things, or allow the energy to catch up with you, or whatever you need. Sometimes things just can't always be go, 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 or we just start to have trouble, you know? But things might turn into go, 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 go for a while, but in a healthy way, in a balanced way. So if you're, called to move forward, it's time, is what I'd say. And it might be quick too. Like you might have been in an idle period for months, and then the universe kind of, they're kind of showing like an angel like walking by this like vehicle, and it's like da, 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 bam, and it like, you know, on the slide kind of like kicks the vehicle and it puts it in gear. It's like it just like, and then maybe you'll feel like you're stuck in go, 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 but it's like healthy. It's a good thing, not to the point where it's like harmful to you, by the way. So I feel like the universe is conspiring to move you forward, and maybe there's been a lot of maintenance work that's been needing to be done, or clearing, or, you know, maybe this vehicle needed some upgrades metaphorically. So be mindful of that. So there's more with cheetah here. They're showing this cheetah spots here. It's almost like going so fast that the spots like fall off of it, which is weird. Almost like a cartoon where someone like meow, and like it like leaves their like stripes and like spots behind, if that makes sense. And so the message with the stripes and spots here is I feel like you're going to be leaving behind a lot, actually, is what I'm getting, even about like your identity. And sometimes we have to, not always, but sometimes we have to leave behind certain old identities or ways we view ourselves, maybe even stories, in order to move forward or step into the new us or the new roles that are called to us, or we're called to, or maybe they're called to us. So if you need to leave certain things behind, even just ways you view yourself to move forward, it's time for that. Whether it's old habits and patterns or old ways you've lived your life. And sometimes we view ourselves a certain way. We need to let go of that. Like, what's an example here? Like maybe as an example, someone views themselves as only seeing themselves as making like $30,000 a year. And they've never made more than that. And that's like almost part of their identity, but they have to leave that behind in order to make 60,000 or 100,000 or more, or be wealthy. Or maybe someone sees themselves as like poor, but they need to develop a wealth mindset, or like they are, or they'll have to like let go of a lot of those comfortable habits or maybe not habits, but identities, in order to like put on the suit of being more wealthy in their life. Whether that's like in literal like finances or that's in romance, it is kind of time to shed certain old identities or ways you're viewing yourself, or just old habits or whatever it is you need to shed, and just open to a new world, because it's time. I feel like you've lived out this old world you've been living in like time and time again. Like how the earth is round and you sorry, I was laughing because I'm like, I hope I'm not, is there any like flat earther that's going to be mad at me in the comments, which is fine if they are, by the way, but the earth is round. A lot of the evidence points to that, right? And it's what I get intuitively, round-ish. And if you go around the earth, you're just kind of experiencing, like you're walking the same path, right? Like they showed this like gigantic, like it looked like a big cat, again with like cheetah, walking around this earth. And after a while, like you've kind of experienced this old world for yourself enough times, like you're just kind of walking around in orbit or in circle around the same thing. And sure, there's cool spots that you like, there's certain things you like about it, it's been your home, but there's an old world that came before that, and an old world that was smaller that came before that. But it's time for the new world, and kind of breaching out of the atmosphere of the old world and reaching for that and being propelled to that by the universe. That is happening. So it can be a bit uncomfortable when you have to shed the old world, that old orbit, that thing you're used to, that old identity of this is my world or my home or whatever, to move to the new world to conquer, is what I'm hearing. I know conquer has a weird connotation, but bear with me. That's what I'm hearing. So maybe it makes sense in your world in a more positive light, and maybe there'll be a new world after that, and maybe it'll be a series of new worlds before you find like the ideal, optimal, long-term situation or thing for you. Or maybe you just keep growing your whole life and you keep shedding the old skin as you need to. But you're definitely one of those periods where it's time for the new world, and staying stuck in the old world is going to be detrimental. So it's time to leave your smaller world behind, whatever that looks like. And sometimes you can take people with you, so it doesn't mean you need to break up with everyone in your life. Sometimes you can't. So maybe you've already been in a phase where you're shedding certain things that have been a bit more difficult to shed, or taking longer periods of time to prepare for the leap. But it's kind of time for that quantum leap, is what I'm getting, especially regarding like your identity and how you're going to be viewing yourself in the future. Okay, so next thing that's coming through, I guess there's more with that here. There's trying to be the Sphinx. So what's up with the Sphinx here? I feel like some of you are like solving riddles on like what it takes to get to the next phase, riddles within yourself about how to unlock the next phase within yourself, and like what it takes to heal yourself, what it takes to get over certain humps or obstacles you've been facing, or just getting to the next phase of your life. I feel like you are like solving metaphorically the Sphinx's riddles for yourself. Sometimes no one can do that for us. Sometimes they can. Sometimes that's why we go to certain experts or therapists or doctors or people that we need to help ourselves heal or get to the next level or work on something in ourselves. But sometimes there are certain things we have to do ourselves and unlock for ourselves. It kind of reminds me, the thing that's popping in really briefly as a flash, as a something that kind of supports this message is dating. Like maybe I know I've talked about this on certain lives, but you go to different videos and dating coaches and things, and they keep saying all these different things, and like all these different pieces of advice, and some of it starts to just sound like hoopla after a while. You're like, what does that even mean? And sometimes you just kind of have to either go within and discern for yourself and figure out what works and what doesn't, and just like, okay, none of this makes sense. I feel this way. I've noticed when I approach it this way, it works for me. I'm feeling intuitively to do it this way. I'm just going to do it this way. And that starts to unlock things when you figure it out for yourself what works, instead of like trying to force all these outside messages from whether they're actual experts or quote unquote experts. And like once you figure it out for yourself, you've kind of unlocked the puzzle, and you can like just start to have more results for yourself in your life or move forward in certain ways. So like maybe, for example, dating for you, the key that you have to unlock is learning to be your authentic self. And no one can do that for you, because you could try all the techniques in the book, but if it's not coming from an authentic, healed, good place, it's just like slathering ice cream on top of like cardboard and being like, here, I've made dessert. It's like, and I'm not calling you cardboard, by the way, but it's like, if the root of the issue isn't fixed, you can put all the icing and band-aids on it that you want, and it's not going to like fix what's actually going on in the situation. And they're saying, okay, you guys get it, so I'm not going to beat that to a pulp if we don't need to. Or I already did beat it to a pulp, so sorry. But anyways, I feel like you're unlocking for yourself, or it's like time to unlock for yourself, the riddles in your life so that you can have the results you'd like to achieve, or move forward in the right ways, or not be stuck in certain things, if that makes sense. Hopefully that helps as a message there. One of the last things, they're showing me like a zebra cake, actually. And so what's up with the zebra cake here? I don't think I've ever been shown a zebra cake. I've been shown zebras, I've been shown cake, but finally, the ultimate combination, the zebra cake. It's a joke. But let's see what's up with the zebra cake here. Before I make too many more zebra cake jokes, which is not usually the crux of my humor, but let's see. One thing I'm hearing is I do feel like you are getting new things, or you might have certain things in your world that are combining, emerging in slightly uncomfortable ways, but it works. Like if you think of that's not the right angle. What's the right angle? Can I get the right message for you guys, please? For them, please? I feel like you are going to have certain things emerging in your world, but it's actually going to be really beautiful. It's going to work. One of the examples that's kind of popping in is like when you merge friend groups in your life. If you've ever had a time where you had this friend group at work and this friend group from, I don't know, college or whatever. And then like you have a party and you invite both friend groups and they mingle and it's extremely uncomfortable. But I feel like, certain things are going to merge in your life in a really beautiful way. Like maybe you're bringing your spirituality to the office or the place you work, and it goes really well. You're like, oh, I didn't expect everyone to be so on board with this. Or it could be anything else, I guess, that resonates for you. But that's one of the messages with the zebra cake. I also feel like you're getting rewards for things in unexpected ways. So I feel like that's a prime message with the zebra cake is like, maybe you're expecting, I don't know, something more standard, like a certain type of other cake, or you were metaphorically, or you were expecting something that's very common as like reward for certain work. And like, maybe you're used to like put in quarter and get gumball. But maybe this instance you put in like a quarter or a $50 or whatever, and all of a sudden you get like a zebra cake. You're like, how the heck did that didn't make any sense at all. But it happened, if that makes sense. So you might be putting work into something and get back something completely different, but it like works. So it doesn't mean stop this thing. If you really would like a different result, like maybe you need to tweak a few things, but you might find that this works for you and you just kind of expand that. And then even like more rewards come in. So even if certain rewards like aren't what you're expecting from certain work or certain things you're putting into things, certain work you're putting into things, I would still like stick with it because this might be the like pre-taste doesn't make sense, but the precursor to more and different rewards coming in for the thing you're putting work into. And like also like a reward is something I'm kind of getting. It's kind of like this message of like, who are we to judge this when the universe knows what's right? And again, if you're willing to receive this reward, even if it's unexpected or different, and you might even really like it, by the way, you might get more, if you're just kind of graciously receiving the rewards or the abundance, even if it's different than you thought or something like that. So you guys get it, is what I'm getting with that message. So I feel like that's it for that reading, is what I'm getting. So I hope that was helpful and resonated to whatever was for your highest good. That was the earth signs. We're going to move to air in a second, and I'm going to hang out with y'all before we do that. Ooh, so thanks, earth signs. Whoop, didn't mean to make a weird... I have a weird habit of making like weird voices and being silly, so I didn't mean that any type of way. Thanks, Sarah C. Okay, Mona Lynn Taylor. Hi, Brandon. Just joining. Hey, hope you're doing well. Thanks, Bree. You're welcome. Embrace the weirdness. Yes. Yes. Maybe that's what these lives need. Sometimes I feel like I'm totally prepared to own my weirdness. In a lot of ways I do, with just channeling in the first place and doing this work and showing up for these lives. And sometimes I think it is like the funniest thing, and it definitely garners a lot of laughs from like people in my life. And sometimes I think it, I want to say it goes too far, but it's like, and it's like, I don't know how to describe this, but like sometimes, not that I need to talk about myself this whole time. Sometimes like what I find funny is like funny from like a third party perspective outside of my interaction with someone. So it's like I'll do something because I think it would be really funny, like if it was in a movie. Does that make sense? And like someone else were watching, but it's but it turns out like in that, sometimes it is really funny in that situation, but the other times it's just like in the situation it's awkward, but I'm like, man, this would be so funny if someone saw this happen. And then it just gets a little bit like awkward sometimes. Not always. Sometimes it really works, but so not everyone gets it, right away. If they don't, you understand what I'm saying. But that was a terrible explanation of it all, but hopefully that made sense anyways. I'll answer this. Anne says, I see you on your site. You no longer schedule one-on-one readings. Will you be returning to them? I'm getting no right now. Probably not. They were really taking a lot out of me. It was for me personally, and it's not like I'm blaming anyone else, but it was really difficult for me for whatever reason to work with a lot of different people's energies, and to just have that scheduler open to anyone. So I need to pare back from that and do different things right now, just for my own sanity and well-being in general. So in some ways I do miss them. I miss getting to interact with a lot of you guys one-on-one and getting to know you guys and facilitating those readings. There were a lot of things that were really rewarding about them. But just for my own health and well-being right now, I need to stop doing those for now. So we're moving to something that's a bit more feasible and that works better for me. For whatever reason, like it's not that the readings haven't been good for the people getting them. It hasn't been that they're like, there were definitely things I really liked and enjoyed about them, but it just became more than I could manage, I suppose, and it wasn't getting better. So I have to look after myself, is what I'd say. Are we not actually in a movie at all times? No. I think sometimes it can feel like it because we watch so many movies, but I think for me personally, sometimes I like to be careful of that because I don't want to over dramatize my life, if that makes sense. Oh, thanks, Elizabeth. That means a lot. Because anyone just listening and not, if you're just having like headphones in and you're doing something else, Elizabeth said that she feels so honored that she got one, like a one-on-one reading. So I like to pretend I'm in a mockumentary. I think that is potentially a really fantastic way to live because I think a lot of mockumentaries are absolutely amazing. I think I would love to make a mockumentary one day. Or at least I love the idea of making a mockumentary. Maybe I'd absolutely be like pulling my hair out if I tried, but yeah, I got one too last July and I'm very fortunate to have spoken to. Yeah, it was good. I think I remember that one. But yeah, that means a lot, guys. Thank you. And I know that is a big change. They want me to talk about it too much in my business, and it's a big leap for me as well. So we'll see where it goes. That's all they want me to say about it. So I'm just going to trust that is the best course of action. So thanks, Sarah. So I'm getting to start the next reading. So we're doing the air signs next. So give me 1 second here. They're saying, nope, just start the reading. So, okay. Yeah, if you have an air sign, sun, moon, or rising, this is for you when you see it. Okay, first thing I'm hearing for you, we're just going to flow with the channel messages coming through from my spirit guides, the angels and source, and only what's for the highest good, to participate, of course. Only what's of the true highest light, highest infinite wisdom. Is that you guys do have some major changes coming in, some like overhauls. It might take some time. I feel like you've already been in this process. They're showing these volcanoes erupting in your world, but it's in the past. So you might have had a lot of major changes that rocked your world in the past, whether it's recent past or in the past like couple of years. And like eventually lava cools into like obsidian and that volcanic rock. So weird message. I feel like some of that is happening for you now where maybe certain pathways for the highest good are opening up because the lava has cooled and you can finally traverse this pathway. Whereas before, like if you had tried before, you would have like burnt up in the lava, if that makes sense. So I feel like some of the changes are complete and you're seeing the rewards from the difficulty, or maybe you're finally able to pick up certain pieces that you haven't been able to pick up before, or you're healing certain things finally that haven't been able to heal or have been more difficult to heal. So you will be moving forward with all that soon is what I'm getting. Beyond all of that, I feel like there are more changes on the way. I don't feel like they're as bad, honestly. I feel like you're just in the middle of the overhaul overall. Like you're not finished. Like maybe you feel like you've been through a lot, but sometimes there's just still more to go. And again, I don't feel like it's all going to be terrible or anything like that. It doesn't have to be awful. It's just that there are more changes on the way. And you know what? Sometimes there are changes that really delight us overall. Sometimes we're like, oh, thank God this thing changed. Even if it like worries us, like you get it. So don't think this is like all like negative or a negative message necessarily. It kind of just is what it is anyways. But I feel like you've also been praying for change, many of you, maybe not all of you, but many of you. And you are going to receive that, especially where you've been praying for it. There are certain like overhauls underway underneath the surface right now. And you're going to be seeing those play out on the surface soon. Next message they have for you here, they're showing me a tiger here. This tiger is like playing with a giant ball of yarn, interestingly enough. The message is like you're never too old for play. And and even like tigers, go out and they play sometimes, or if they're in the zoo, they'll like play around with each other and I don't know, slap each other with their paws and stuff. I don't know. but I would definitely make sure you're balancing your serious life with play, not making everything too serious. I don't think life is meant to be taken too serious. I know that we are trained into it, and we are trained into seeing everything as super serial all the time, and super serious. And it's just not always the case, regardless of like what we've been trained into. And just because we've been trained into it by society or parents or how other people see things or other people's stories or beliefs or judgments doesn't mean that that's the truth, or true for you. So definitely try to play a bit more, bring more joy into your life and expand that and balance out the seriousness if you can, because I think that'll just bring you more joy and that'll help you attract better into your world. And it's funny how sometimes we keep the higher frequencies, not the higher frequencies, because I don't want to say that you're low vibrational, all of you, or anything like that, but sometimes we keep those higher experiences like joy or like peace at bay because we think we need to hyperfixate and hyper-focus on this thing that's going wrong and take it super seriously. Be like, I can't play or have joy until all the world's problems are solved. And then it's like, that's the exact opposite approach of what you should be doing. Or maybe a more balanced approach would be helpful if you were to bring more joy and play and peace into your world to balance out, maybe some of the more serious things, at least to your minds, though maybe they're serious going on. Those things could be the things that start to attract more high frequency and experiences and more joy and more appreciation. And then it kind of helps solve some of the problems or all of them. And you're like, oh, I guess I should have been more in joy all the time. Or, sometimes even we super hyper fixate on something we're really worried about and then it resolves itself anyways. And we're like, oh, I just wasted all that time, like super fixated and worried on it. Not that it was a waste of time. Like maybe you gained a lesson from that or learned from that experience to learn not to do that in the future. But sometimes joy is the antidote to our, I don't want to say to our lives because that has a weird connotation because usually there's an antidote to a poison and our lives aren't poison. But sometimes joy is the antidote we seek and we keep it at bay because what I just said. So you don't need to hyperfix on your problems. You also don't need to bury your head in the sand, but see if you can expand joy and play, no matter how old and adult tiger you are. If even if you think of like cats, house cats, like I am thinking of my cat. Well, I don't know if it's mine, but the cat in the house with and he's in his adult years where he's like 10, 11, 12, 13, where he's like an older cat, but he still gets the zoomies and runs around and tries to play with the other cat and all that. And like, they don't start to judge play just because they're old. They just do what feels right to them, intuitively or, instinctually in the moment. They just do what they need to do. So I think sometimes when humans train themselves out of a certain level of healthy instinct, they get themselves in trouble with their stories and judgments like that. But I'm taking it in a direction they didn't want me to take. So let's backtrack a little bit. You kind of get it, what I was saying. Have joy, have play, have fun in a balanced way. Let's move on here. Funny enough, they're showing me a zebra next, but it's the animal. Did a whole zebra cake episode in the Earth Signs reading for anyone who missed that. The zebra is talking about uniqueness. The zebra has like this jewel on its like forehead. It's like a ruby it's like encrusted in like gold, and this like gold like circlet that it's wearing, or crown or tiara or something. And this zebra is saying that your uniqueness gets you crowned. Oftentimes when zebra has come through in the past while of doing readings, it has had to do with a being's uniqueness. If you think of like unique stripes or something like that for the past like 2 or 3 years or whatever. And, so if you own your uniqueness, let me see what they'd actually like me to say here. You being the unique you, even if it's seems like it's been punished in the past by like parents growing up, or friends who didn't want to see you shine, or loved ones who were afraid of losing you, and so they tried to dim your light or something weird and awful like that. I feel like you being that unique you, and if you need to heal it, bringing that out more, is going to, again, like get you crowned. So bring you rewards, bring you success, bring you more abundance, bring you who's meant to be around you. And sometimes we are afraid to own our unique selves, and we keep it at bay because we are afraid of being punished in some way, perhaps like we have in the past. But what if that doesn't apply any longer? What if you can walk away from the people who would punish you from that and start to attract in the people who would celebrate that in you? And what if you can draw in what's for you by being you and being in that frequency? And then you get to experience all that's meant for you as a result. So you guys are meant to be crowned in some way, but you have to be your unique self, not following someone else's trail they're trying to lay out for you or force you down. Not allowing yourself to be forced down a certain pathway by others around you, but owning the pathway that's uniquely meant for you. I feel like it's going to be the thing that sets you free, even, is what I'm getting. So anywhere you need to heal yourself, work on yourself to bring that out, I would. Some of you are already there and you're like questioning yourself, like, oh, should I be this weird? Oh, should I say this weird thing to my friends? Or, oh, should I really be going on this pathway I feel called to? I feel like it's yes, especially if it's like the unique you being called to that, your unique pathway. So try not to think you need to be like anyone else. Sometimes we can borrow certain ideas or things from other people if it resonates for us, or we really admire those traits or things like that, but you're not actually supposed to become them, if that was ever a worry for any of you. So let me come back to where we should go next here for this reading. So with zebra, the other thing is zebras can be a little bit vicious, like they I guess they kind of have to be to survive in their environment. Like they might nip or bite, they might be ready to like kick a lion that's coming their way to eat them and stuff and all that. It's like really okay to stand up for yourself is what I'm getting, and like be vicious where it's warranted. And it does take balance to employ this properly sometimes, because we don't want to start banging everyone over the head on a whim the second they might be disrespecting us, because they might not be trying to do that, when they say a certain thing. Because I've known people who would just fly off the handle at any old thing, and I think it kind of helps make them miserable in some ways when they're just freaking out on anyone, and the way that relationships might blow up or things like that. So try to keep a balanced approach to it, but it's okay to like protect yourself. It's okay to have a boundary if you need to. If we're too nice to the salesman, we end up giving our house away. Not literally, but you understand the metaphor. Like if we're too nice to the person who's trying to get something out of us and they don't have good intentions, it's like it kind of backfires. So again, okay to stand up for yourself is what I'd say, in your unique self. And it's also time to walk away from anywhere things are like taking advantage of you overly much, or you realize people are taking advantage of you. I don't feel like that fits in your new reality you're birthing. I feel like you kind of have to walk away from that. So, okay, so at least let's move on to the next message they have for you here. Showing these bells ringing. There's Tibetan bells. There's like wedding bells that are ringing. There's a lot of different bells that are ringing right now. So what's the message with the bells here? So the bell is tolling for certain things in your life that need to go, kind of like that last message. Certain people, certain habits or patterns, even certain like jobs. I feel like the writing is kind of on the wall for certain things that need to go. I feel like you're actually going to be rejoicing in a lot of this. Certain things like leaving like this. A few of you might be upset, but it leads to good things. So bear with me on that one. Certain things just need to go is kind of what I'm getting. And I feel like you might have been like keeping them around, whether it's certain like friends or frenemies or people you really had hope for, or things you really hoped would pan out. But if those bells start tolling for certain things, it's time to let it go and do the best you can do to do it with grace. Because it's not like it's a bad thing. It's things that don't belong with the authentic you, things that maybe even have been detrimental for you. It can still be ending sometimes painful when certain things end, regardless. But I don't feel like it's going to be too bad, honestly, regarding this. I feel like the bell tolling in this instance is in your favor. So you might have already seen this like playing out and you're like, oh, yep, I see that playing out. But I feel like it's just making space for what's authentically for you. And if anything's leaving, you might question like, okay, was that thing actually for me? Probably not. Or is there just something that's going to be better in the future that's coming in that's authentically for me and my future path here? Because there's just a lot reorganizing and shifting. I've been bringing this through a lot in different channelings and channel messages. And sometimes it's important to honor that and not just cling to everything the second it starts to go, So have a little bit of grace for yourself and allowing things to reorganize as they need to for the highest good of all. And you'll know what these things are. It's going to be very obvious. So there's at least one more message. They showed me this, it's not a bad thing, so bear with me, but they showed me this drop of blood, weirdly enough. I don't like this visual, but it could be something different than where I'm assuming it's going. So let me sit with it for a second and just see what plays out and what the message is for you. Excuse me for the pause here. Okay, so they're showing this and this isn't something I condone or recommend, bear with me. They're showing this ritual, and someone is not harming themselves or others or sacrificing anything, but it involves blood, which I never recommend or feel is necessary. First and foremost, because you can get any energy or result from source should it be in the highest good. And when you pull from source for things, you're pulling from an unlimited and infinite source. You're not pulling from a finite, lower energy supply. And you never really need to offer a sacrifice to work with source or manifest things. Maybe you need to, if you're manifesting a new job, walk away from your old job or relinquish the old life, but that's completely different. But the message is, as far as what this is talking about, is some of you feel like you need to do really extreme things to get results in your life. You might feel like you need to walk away from literally everything and to throw away all your relationships to be yourself or to get certain results. Or you might feel like you need to sacrifice all your friendships to have success and throw everyone away. Or you might feel like you need to sacrifice too much or more than you actually have to. So the message is to balance that and try to sit with and realize what it actually takes, for certain things to be successful or to have healthy relationships. Because it doesn't require the sacrifice that you think it does. And it doesn't require extremism, usually. Usually it requires small adjustments over time or changes in your habits and your patterns. Maybe it requires some mindset shifts, but some of you are resorting to extremes to try to accomplish certain things, and it's not healthy. So try to pare that back and balance that out a bit more. You don't need to work 20 hours a day to have success. You could probably pare it back to 10 or probably even less. An example that's coming to mind that they're telling me to tell you is, I remember this one time, and honestly, I'm a little bit hesitant just based on the people who show me this, because they weren't always the most, they weren't always people I would listen to about most things, if that makes sense, from my past that shared this information from me. But I'm being guided to share this, so I'll tell you. If you look at certain really successful people from the past, even musicians like Mozart, Beethoven, they actually only spent 4 focused hours on their craft, 4 focused hours. And the rest of their daily routine would be take a walk in the park for 3 hours. bathe like all the time. Like I think Beethoven used to bathe all the time, and he, like, I think the landlord complained because like the water would like drip through the floorboards and ruin the property or something. But you know, like they wouldn't have like 20 hours of work that they'd be putting into their craft. Even people who were famous for being amazing at their craft, it was like a certain amount of focused hours a day that was like actually sustainable. So they might write music for like 4 hours a day, and then like the rest of the day they do whatever the heck else they wanted to do. And I know I was about to get into a thing they don't want me to get into. So maybe you need only like 4 focused hours of honing your craft, not 20. And maybe it takes more. Maybe you do need 8 hours or 10 hours of work in your business. But again, you don't need to be so extreme that it's like sacrificing your health, sacrificing yourself, sacrificing things you don't need to sacrifice. It's just not healthy. So keep that in mind. Sometimes the changes you need to make are small. Or if you're really, really, really over and over and over again trying to force something to happen, maybe that specific thing isn't for you. If it's just not happening no matter what, you don't have to resort to extremism, and it's not recommended is kind of what I'm getting. And that last bit's probably going to be for you if it's like a specific person you're trying to manifest, or a very, very, very specific ways things are you're trying to get things to play out or something like that. Like be a little bit flexible, but hopefully that makes sense and I'm not just beating a dead horse with that one. Last thing they're showing me is a canary. I do feel like you are being led away from the things that are dangerous or not going to be good for your health. So just trust what the universe collapses right now and brings you to. It's meant to be for your highest good. So they're done. Hope that was helpful and resonated. Do whatever is for your highest good. I know that might have been a little bit shorter than some of the other ones, but I just go until they tell me to stop. So thank you for this. 4 hours of focus is doable. Yeah, you're welcome. And it doesn't have to literally be like that. Like find your right flow for you. But yeah, hopefully that helps you find a good balance for you. You're welcome, Simone. Thanks for the feedback. Good to see you, by the way. Hope you're doing well. Good, Olivia. Protected from the dangerous. Been feeling you when what's been dangerous. Good. Trust your instincts. You're welcome, Suji, if I'm saying that right. Sorry, I got distracted by just some things I had on my desk for a second. Shay says, so many people have fell away. The thing I hear for you is that's not necessarily a bad thing. There could be like a swarm of people who come in the future, even if it's not right away. The zebra was all in my space smiling. Love that. Love the Sunday readings. So glad to hear it. That means a lot. Sorry for the screaming cats. He does that sometimes. Some of the cats have gotten into some weird habits, so I don't know. It's fine. He doesn't do that all the time. He's being exceptionally noisy today, but it's fine. I lost all my friends. Lainey says they lost all their friends. Let it happen. I feel lighter. If you feel lighter, I feel like that's a good sign, honestly. I feel like that's a good sign you went in the right direction. Sometimes we like make a move and like we're not sure about it, but we just feel so much lighter energetically, and like our path ahead feels lighter. That's very good indication it was the right move. His little meows, yeah. Sometimes they like start like, I don't know. One cat had like a habit where he started meowing every time he went to the bathroom. And he had some issues with going to the bathroom that got resolved, and but he still does it. And then the other cat saw him meowing every time he went to the bathroom, so the other cat, who has no issues, starts like screaming every time before and after he goes to the bathroom. So I'm just like, why did you? Why? What does 8-8 mean? I mean, it can mean different things depending on what different signs mean for you, or what the universe is trying to tell you, or what you have honed in with the universe and what meaning certain signs have. Usually 8-8 to me is, in like repeating eights are abundance, and prosperity is usually sometimes money as well. Usually what eights mean to me. It could mean something different to you if you hone something different in, or it could be talking to the Lion's Gate on 8-8s. I feel like it means abundance though, is what I'd say, or like incoming abundance. So are you coming to an end of the live? We still have the water signs and potentially a full channel mode message. So we still got a little bit to go. Good Lord, the synchronicities have been off. Synchronicities have been off the chart since the fires class. Woo, loving it. How's it get even better than that? Love the synchronicities. I think that can happen too as we like elevate or become more magical ourselves, or you know what have you, as we just get more synchronicity. So I love that. Good to see that you are getting more synchronicity. Conscious Motherhood with Denise asks, this is a topic that I could rant about for a long time, actually. But Conscious Motherhood with Denise asks, have you experienced people who take New Age thoughts so far it becomes toxic? Yes and no. But yes. I feel like people who are actually connected and intuitive and accurate with that tend to be the healthiest people to talk to about things, you know, whether they identify as New Age or not. So I feel like some people sometimes will just like read a New Age book and they're like, oh, now I'm awakened and everyone else sucks and I'm so aware. And it's just like they didn't actually grow in awareness. They just read a book and took the ideas and, you know, so there's a lot of different things I've seen that just seem a little bit unhealthy with, and it really depends, because I don't want to throw all the good out with just some of the unhealthy things I've seen. But, you know, me personally, I hesitate to like identify as like New Age specifically, or just as like a group. Like I kind of just go more with like, I am what I am. I get what I get. You know, I do my best to be highest and best aligned with source, you know, the angels, spirit guides, divine guidance, divine wisdom, regardless of whether that agrees with a religion or a philosophy or New Age or other spiritual people or anything at all. Because I've found that's been the most accurate and helpful and what's worked best for me. And oftentimes when I get into trouble is when I put other people's ideas or beliefs or teachings beyond it before my own, regardless of the clout that they have or the philosophy and what that philosophy is supposed to mean, or if they're this version of spiritual or that version of religious or whatever. I think like some of the things that I've seen that are a bit more unhealthy regarding New Age is sometimes certain ideas that are purported about manifestation, not all, but I think some of the ideas that are put out there are a little bit outdated for how things actually work now, if I'm being honest. I've seen a lot of, there's certain things I don't want me to talk about. So I want to make sure I talk to what's actually for the for me to talk about here. Like some people do take it too far or a little bit extreme, or it's not balanced with their intuition. It's like they hear a New Age belief and they're just like, this is how it works. Yeah. And they'll just like attack anyone who disagrees with them. So I don't know. I think more like the unhealthiness comes from probably where a person is at, as much as a certain like philosophy or belief. So they liked how I worded that. So I think that is kind of part of the issue. Like some people will put out ideas like, sorry, I keep getting pulled back and forth. I know I like kind of say something and stop, and it's just because I'm about to say something they don't agree with me. It wouldn't be for the highest good for me to say. So what would be for the highest good for me to say about it here? One of the things I've seen that is really interesting to me is when New Age people take religious beliefs, like especially about like sin or certain things that religious really like beats up on and judges, and then just like take the same belief and like twist it to be New Age and then teach it, but in a way that's like New Age. So like, for instance, would be, you know, what can I say on TikTok? That's fine for the platform. 18 plus things like procreating, you know, after dark kind of topics. It's like in religion, they'll talk about like, oh, procreation bad unless married, procreation all sin, like all this stuff. And you're like, and then you kind of move out of those judgments in that religion. You're like, okay. And then you like look at the new age and it's like, oh, when you procreate with people, all the energies of the past people they slept with are there. And you need to worry about the energy exchange and it's going to ruin your life. Oh my God. Ah! And it just like, it's the same teaching, just twisted to be new age and about energy. I'm like, this isn't helpful. It's the same thing. You're doing the same thing that you hate religion for. So stop. So I have trouble with a lot of teachings that are new age because of that, where they just take the same thing that was fueled with judgments and like this thing bad and then just try to like make it new age but still twisted to fit the religious teaching. I have troubles with that in new age. I have certain troubles with people who have been like, oh, when you think something, you manifest it. When you think something, you manifest it. When you think something, you manifest it. And maybe this is more something personal for my story, because like before that was like drilled into my brain. I have to tell a story to make this make sense for you probably. My take in what I was experiencing was like ask and you will receive. So if I'm intending and asking for something to show up, then it would like show up. And I could, and like the other thing with thoughts is like a lot of the times the thoughts that I'm picking up on aren't even mine. It's like I'm picking up on someone else's anxiety or someone else being at a certain level energetically. And so to hear the idea that like all your thoughts manifest, and I'm picking up on thoughts that aren't even mine, it's like that's a little bit anxiety producing, or could be for a lot of people, because then all of a sudden you're like policing your thoughts, and all of a sudden when it's like don't think this thing, like what do? You think that thing. So it's like, although like people are like don't think about polar bears, you start thinking about polar bears. So it's like don't think negative things or it manifests. You're like okay, don't think about negative things. What do? You think about negative things. And then it's like then people have this weird idea where it's like, oh, if you're afraid of something, you're going to manifest it. So then you have this weird downward spiral of like, don't think about negative things. If you think about negative things, you're going to manifest something. So then you're like having negative things and you're afraid of them happening. And you have the thought that if you're afraid of it happening, it's going to manifest negative things and what you're afraid of. And it just spirals into this like fear cycle. And I don't think it's healthy. And I'm not even sure it's true, if I'm being honest, because the other thing I experienced is like when I just like there was this period of time years ago where I watched like content after content after content where I just got like people like readers, which is why I don't like look at Instagram posts about spirituality anymore. And I'm very careful with the readers I watch anymore, or book with, or anything like that. Like readers, people would just be like, what do you think about? You manifest. And like it was interesting because like I felt this shift where like before it wasn't like that, but this energy field as like I almost like succumbed to the belief. It was very weird to watch happen. And like the energy around my brain like shifted. And all of a sudden it was like what I thought about did manifest. And it wasn't like that before. So I think sometimes we're like creating crap through some of the beliefs that are put out over and over and over again, if you're powerful enough to like start manifesting certain ways things work, and we can create better. So that's another problem I have with certain teachings, that they seem very set in stone, like this is how it works. And that might not even necessarily be true. Like you could be creating it working that way. And that, again, I'm not trying to make you scared, because that kind of falls into like, if you think it, you create it thing. But I just think we can create so much better, and we can up level to being above and beyond some of the fear-based beliefs, or the beliefs that don't work for us, or are actually catastrophic for some people. And am I still working through some of that for myself? I've gotten beyond that issue more, actually. But sometimes certain things might still come up like that, where I have to work with, okay, like what's really going on here? Is this thing they're saying actually true? Is this how I actually want it to work? Or do I have another choice here? And it gets easier to navigate when you realize there are sometimes ways you have a choice with the way things are showing up. So I think sometimes things get toxic because people are coming from down here. And if you're someone who's up here and you're getting the divine messages and how things work, and you start to go down here with them, you're going to start to get results that are down here, and it doesn't help. So I don't know if that's helpful for you to hear about any of that, but I hope that's helpful. You are so articulate. It's a pleasure to hear you speak naturally from your heart, expressing your views. Thank you, Leo. I appreciate that. You're welcome. Um, and there are some other things I could talk to. There was a comment that I don't think this is exactly what you were talking to, but I want to speak to it because I find it interesting. Actually, no. What should I get into next to talk about with all this? Um, I think something to watch out for too is I think sometimes people just like read something and then they regurgitate it without checking in with their intuition on whether it's true or not, like especially regarding spiritual teachings. And the other thing is like spirituality in some ways did kind of become trendier, or like some people it's about the image, or some people do see it as a way to like clout instead of doing it for maybe like the divinely guided like right reasons. And even though like certain people aren't there, they do get like a really big following. Maybe they just post it at the right time, or that's just for whatever reason that's the way it's working out. And but what they're saying isn't always there. They might just like think something and there's like blah, and they just like say it, or they read something and they're like blah, and they just say it, and it's just not always like accurate or there. And I think it could just be like a lot of the masses maybe haven't been ready for things that are more like there and actually connected and high vibrational. Maybe, but I think it can depend. So I think there's a lot that gets purported as truth that's not truth, and I think that's can sometimes become part of our journey to get in tune with ourselves and our connection and our intuition and navigate it that way instead of being pulled around on the this whatever it is of everybody else's opinions and views and things like that. So I think, yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. But the other thing I was going to talk about is I think sometimes the way that what our energies are vibration. Okay, I have other things to talk about as well. I'm so sorry. I know we're going on a long rant, but other things that are like jumping in to talk about. One thing that I ran into as well is I learned a modality one time. I learned Reiki, then I learned this other energy healing modality that I don't really work with as much anymore. And one thing they would teach in this modality was this very like specific like framework and like set of like how they taught things worked based on certain mystery school teachings or whatever. And a lot of it would have to do with like energy fields, all the different chakras. I think these things can be helpful as starting places to work with our intuition, and maybe a good thing just to have something to go off of for starters. I don't feel like I'm saying that totally right, but bear with me. The thing that happened was when it started to clash with how things were actually showing up for me, or with what I'd already gotten intuitively was not how it worked, or with other things that were out there. So for instance, one of the things I ran into what was an issue would be like one thing we'd do is like measure our energy fields. So we'd get like an attunement for this modality, then they'd bust out the I forget what they're called, dowsing rods, and then like we'd find like the edge of the energy field, and then we'd like measure it to see how far out it expanded once you got the attunement or whatever. And then it would go out like hundreds of yards. It would go out like ridiculous. And like it was interesting because you could feel the edges of people's like energy fields. Like you could feel the edge once you kind of took this and applied it. But where it became an issue was like protecting my energies, because then it was like, well, so many people tell yourself to put yourself in a bubble, but if I'm expanded out hundreds of yards and people are in my energies, how does putting a bubble around my energies protect my energies? And it would all get like all messed up in my head, and then all of a sudden like all the weird things would start happening because I'd be like, oh, they're in my energies, I'm taking on their energies, da da da. It would just like create this like awful experience, and like where some of those negative things would only start happening because I was so like convoluted. But when I like let go of all those mystery school teachings and like more the mental understandings that were hindering me, and it was just like, okay, the energy bubble is an intention to protect my energies. I don't have to have it in my head mentally how it works. On some level, I know clear cognitively or in my connected way how it works. I don't need to mentally grasp it. So I'm just going to let go of those teachings and let the bubble work as an intention. And then it started to work better for me because I didn't have this like mental thing I was forcing things to fit into, if that makes sense. Or like, so sometimes these specific teachings and mental understandings to me have been hindering instead of just going off of my intuition, what I'm guided to do, just kind of going with my knowing in the moment with things. So I think sometimes the other thing to watch out for is the very specific mental teachings on like the one way it's supposed to work according to this thing, because it doesn't always weirdly work like that, if that makes sense, or it could be harmful if it doesn't balance with the other ways you're approaching things. Another example I have is I used to have this, it only happened a couple times and I was able to jump out of it really quickly, but the idea with like channeling or doing energy healing, because it's like supposed to come from source, like above, if you will. I would have trouble if there was like if I were in a multi-story building and people were above me, because I'd be like, oh, if I'm doing energy healing, it's flowing in. Is it coming from above, like in their house as well? And then I have to worry about their energies. And when I'm channeling, does that start to get in? And the answer is no, it doesn't. But once I let go of that and be like, okay, it's coming from source, it doesn't necessarily have to matter what's physically happening with like the location of my etheric chakras going tens of feet into the air, into the apartment above me. I don't need to worry about that. Not how it works. I'm just going to let go a little bit and just trust I'm divinely protected and go through my process. And then things started flowing and working fine again, where I wasn't feeling weird energies and things like, just weird experiences like that maybe were self-created in some way, just based on the different frameworks that were conflicting, that were handed to me, that I had trouble navigating. So I think that's another thing I'd be mindful of with like a lot of new age teachings, is like when people start saying it only works this way regarding like your fields or energies, or it only works this way, and this is your mental understanding, and this is the only mental understanding you can have, or you're wrong, like that. That's where I start to have some problems, because I've had problems with it in the past. So hopefully that is helpful to hear in some way, and was not detrimental or more confusing for you. But that was just some of my experiences I've had with those things, and maybe that wasn't the right time to share it. So if that wasn't helpful for you, just let go of it. Maybe circle back to it if it's helpful in the future. But I think the other thing I'm mindful of is just people's energies and where they're coming from when they're teaching any type of spiritual things. I think that's also important to work out for. Anything else I should talk about before we move on here? I guess like the last thing I'll talk about is like, there was one time where, I don't know if I should really talk about this, but there are many times where like people will talk about like, oh, like they'll say that your frequency is like your emotions. I don't totally resonate with that. Because one thing there were like this period of time, well, one, you could just be picking up on other people's emotions and feeling that way. And there are plenty of times where I think I'm having a hard time when I'm filming something, but it's actually other people's stuff I'm picking up on. And then I'll rewatch the video and my energies are immaculate and the energies of the video are amazing. I'm like, okay, we're good. But not to toot my own horn, it's just what I'm experienced. The other thing I've experienced is like there were times like after like breakups or like really difficult periods where I'd be like really feeling like having a hard time, and I'd ask my guides like, oh, am I like at a lower vibration right now? I'd be like, nope, you're as high as ever, or in some instances you're actually like higher than ever. So I think the other thing is like, I think it's important to like check in with yourself on it too and trust your intuition. But even when you feel like you're in a low emotional period, it doesn't mean you're low vibrational, if that makes sense. You could be a high vibrational person going through something. You could be a connected and high vibrational person going through something. So I think I'm wary of people who teach that the only thing that makes up your energies is your thoughts and your emotions. Because the other thing is like, what about the energies you're having flow through you from source? Or what about the healing modalities you're attuned to, or the channeling that you do and things like that. So I just think there's more that plays into it sometimes than people teach. And people get stuck thinking like, oh, me sad, me low vibrational, everything's going to go to crap because I'm sad and now I'm tracking sadness. It's like I hesitate on that teaching as well with the law of attraction. I have been tempted for a long time to make like is the law of attraction real video? Because again, I think sometimes a law of attraction can be real when we like buy it hook, line, and sinker and like make it real. But what if there's a better way things can work that we can create? So such as like ask and you will receive, or what if we can create only attracting what's for the highest good for us to attract, whether we are in a good place or we're releasing something one day. So I very much hesitate with that teaching sometimes. I think like we can attract higher experiences, maybe through higher energies in certain ways, but I think it just gets convoluted when you listen to everybody on the topic and then everything conflicts. So, yeah, like I think that's a great mantra, Olivia. So I mean, I know maybe not everything I'm offering today when I talk about these stories is the solution, but hopefully it's a step in the right direction as we consider these things and sit with them and sit with what's for the highest good for us. So I think that's enough on that is what I'm getting. I don't know if hopefully that was helpful and hopefully it wasn't just more confusing for you. You're welcome, Conscious Motherhood. And again, I don't know if everything I said was like the answer, but at the very least, maybe it's a start in the right direction or in uncovering the right things for each of us respectively. I'd love vids on these topics if you feel called to make them. I think I will. I think that's a great idea. I'll sit with that and maybe I'll write some down. And I love my owl mug. Thank you. It's not actually mine. It's from Reed College, which is where my girlfriend went. So but I think owl is a good spirit animal, and I love owls, spirit animal wise at least. So I think it's a good one. So I know we just had like a really long conversation. I might start the water signs reading in a second here. I'll definitely sit with making videos like that more in the future, whether it's longer on YouTube or on TikTok or whatever. So you really helped me because I've taken in such a cocktail of spiritual stuff. I so hear you. And it's so easy nowadays. Like, I think to do that, even without even intending, like you're really interested in spiritual stuff and you look up, you Google something, you find an article, you watch a video, you hear this person, all of a sudden you have 20 different things that conflict. It's like, and I think it's important to realize we have some power in it as well. Or that just not all of it has to be the truth of how it works. So I think that's perfect, Lainey. Lainey says that she usually looks into stuff and says what feels right and resonates. I think that's a great approach for you especially. Oh yeah, this is what I came on TikTok for. Perfect timing. Awesome. Good to see you. I needed to hear it. Thank you so much. Awesome. You are so welcome. So we're going to start the water signs. I think that's a good time to start there. So if you have I'm almost like, should we do the water signs reading? Yeah. If you have a water sign, sun, moon, or rising, this is going to be for you. Oh, any advice on beginning stages of channeling? Practice is what I'd say. It sounds boring, but I feel like that's going to be one of the most important things is like showing up for it, giving you the opportunity to experience it. Also letting the universe guide your journey with it, like bring you to the people you're supposed to channel for, bring you to the people you're supposed to learn from and get ideas from in channeling, bring you to the people you're supposed to experience who are channelers and bringing through messages. So you get a taste of what it's like. And so you can see what resonates for you. You do kind of have to go on your journey and let it play out in the appropriate timing as well. One thing I'll speak to is how the universe was my teacher with channeling. I didn't really meet one person who like taught me how to channel. In fact, I went through a number of people who brought messages through in different ways, a number of people who maybe channeled and normalized it for me. I went through a number of my own experiences where I was brought through channeling so I could experience what it's like over time, whether that was through facilitating energy healing sessions to have practice with working with my gifts for people, or exchanging readings with friends, or talking to intuitive friends on the phone a lot and exchanging channel messages we were getting with each other as our gifts grew. and we're honed in more, but also being brought to the experiences of where you're guided to channel for someone else and you're forced out on the limb and on the spotlight to do this thing for like a stranger or like a friend of a friend. You're like, oh, I've never done this before. And then you get the experience, it comes through, it's accurate, like, oh, that's what it's like. But also sometimes there's the lessons of the people you're not supposed to listen to, or the people who are fear-based, or the people we're shown not to be like, which can be not fun. So I think the other thing to keep in mind is like your journey will be your teacher, and just be sure to follow your guidance as much as it's showing up now on the next steps, people to work with, things to do to begin honing in your gifts more. But the other thing with practicing is you can channel for yourself with like channel writing. Some people call it automatic writing. And that can just show up where you're hearing the messages and you just write, like you hear a sentence, write a sentence, hear a sentence, write a sentence. That can, show up a number of different ways like that. But if you're showing up and putting your gifts to use every day or consistently, they're going to grow a lot faster than just sitting around and waiting for it to happen, if anyone's doing that. I think they can grow on their own, but you leaning into it and working with it every day is going to be powerful. Even if you're just like, one thing I teach is like a set of like questions that you'll ask yourself every day and work with your intuition and channeling to get the answer for it. So maybe you feel called to do that for yourself, or just the other thing is working with your gifts. I annoyed some people in my life with this, in my earlier years with this, but I'd be like, okay, what restaurant do we go to? And nowadays I just get it. Usually I'll just be like, okay, we can go to this place. Or if someone mentions a restaurant and I'm getting no, it's instant. It's like, no. But before, 4 or 5 years ago, I'd be like, I'm feeling like this, but this restaurant doesn't feel right. I feel like I'm getting no on this restaurant. I'd be like looking at the list. I'd be like, I know this isn't right, but I don't know where the yes is on this restaurant that we're supposed to go to, or what food to have. And I would drive like my ex crazy, I think. Because, but then like the other thing is I'd learn how it also worked. Because if I was getting a no, and we went to the restaurant, I'd learn why it was a no. I'd be like, this wasn't enough food. I didn't really like it. It wasn't like a good atmosphere. Some weird negative experience happens. So I learned to trust my intuition as well. But, and I know it's like, reminds me of this video I watched of, Herman Lee, who I used to be really into guitar and like metal shred guitar. And Herman Lee is this dude who plays guitar for like Dragon Force, which is like a power metal band. And, it's all over the top and stuff. And one thing he talked about was learning this one technique on guitar that's really difficult. And I'm not saying you'll have to go through this, but just in case. It's called sweep picking, and it's a very unnatural motion until you get it honed in, because it's just very interesting to get your hands working together in the right ways to make it sound good and the way it's supposed to sound. And he's like, yeah, you're gonna drive your girlfriend mad practicing this technique for over and over again for like weeks and months on end. So not literally mad, but you understand. So it can be like, you might have those moments that are frustrating, but if you stick with it, and if you need to troubleshoot it, just, walk away for an hour, come back to it, try again tomorrow. And it could just show up again. Keeping yourself balanced energetically could also be something that's helpful. Working on yourself energetically. There's a lot of things you can do, but those would be some of the starting pieces of advice I'd talk about for getting into channeling. And also just trusting your journey with it and allowing it to lead you in the ways you're meant to go with it, even if it doesn't look like someone else's. So hopefully that's helpful. What you said about restaurants, that's a really good way to learn to trust intuition. Totally. And I think that's also like a relatively harmless way to practice, because you're not making a life or death choice. Probably you're making, unless there's some extreme circumstance going on, you're making like, what does my body need to eat today? And you get to learn based on what your feedback is. And then you learn like what your intuition is, and you learn what your intuition isn't sometimes. By practicing it every day like that as well. But that's just as powerful as a lesson, because if you're trying to work with your intuition and you realize what it's not, you won't listen to the thing that's not your intuition. And you also, it does get easier, much like when you learn to, I hesitate to make perfect, I hesitate to use analogies sometimes, because I think it doesn't always perfectly correlate to the physical things you want to undertake. it could be better than the physical correlation, but just like playing guitar, maybe just like similar maybe to playing guitar, where you get more familiar with what the right motions are to make, or what the right way to play a chord feels like. You get more aware, your awareness grows around what your intuition is like and what it's like to work with it. Like, what is it like to hear a channel message or receive a channeled visual? How is that different than daydreaming? Or how is that different than a normal thought, or, some other thing? And once it gets easier to discern as you do it more, until it becomes unmistakable. Like a channel message for me, I never get it mistaken with a thought anymore. If it happens, it's exceedingly rare, like 1 in a million, because they're not similar to me and they come from different places. And energetically, it's very different as an experience. So growing your awareness so you can discern those things, also helpful. But sometimes channeling and working with your intuition and energy sensitivity is the way you grow your awareness, or helps expand it. So not always, there's other ways, but that's also what I'd say about that. So hopefully that is helpful and not detrimental in any way. I was really pulled to the lions and just wasn't sure. I would trust that. No, we still have the water signs to do if I'm guided to do them. I know we kind of changed the live into something. We kind of went into a segue here, but making so much sense. Like, I know contrast isn't necessary, but you're explaining so well. Thank you. You're welcome. So glad that it's helpful and making sense too. Do you believe in first impression feelings? If it's intuitive, yes. If I'm understanding what you're saying correctly. If it's like intuitive, yeah, like trust your intuition. When I wasn't as intuitive, or coming from as intuitive a place, if that makes sense, there might have been times in high school where like I looked at a dude and be like, I don't like that guy, and then we'd become friends. But that was more like assumption, I think, presumption, judgment, more so than like intuition. Because like as I worked with my intuition more, there'd be times where I'd see someone and I'd be like, the intuitive thought, and I had to learn what my intuitive thoughts were like, or I started to realize what my intuitive thoughts or cognizant realizations, or whatever you want to call them, were like. I'd be like, I don't ever want to work with that person. And then I started like working for that person at that job. And the thing was like, after I saw that initial like truth, and then they were all like, sweet. I'm like, oh, maybe they're fine. And then no, they were not fine. It was my initial like intuition, and I was dead freaking on. Like, I did not want to work for that person. And I think it can, if you're newer to it, it can just take practice, if it's fear or projection, and like discerning what the difference is when you're projecting versus what your intuition is. And it just takes experience sometimes, which I know is not always like the easiest thing to slog through. But it's worth it to slog through it and start to get that awareness of what the difference is. So hopefully that, I know that's not exciting advice sometimes, because it's just like, I'm not like, I'm not handing you the potion of the gods that magically gives you your intuition instantly, where you're the best channeler in the world tomorrow. But that's just what I've experienced as my journey to get there. It's practical. I appreciate it. You're welcome. I think there's there's always a place for practical. And if it gets to a point where practical isn't practical, then practical is no longer practical. But if it's practical, it's practical. Figure that one out. But okay, so we're gonna do the water signs reading. I was almost kind of getting to like maybe even skip the water signs, but I'm getting not to. So if you have a water sign, well, do we need to talk about anything else before we start this? I'm just gonna start the water signs. Oh, 444, heck yeah. And 88 people here. Boop, boop, boop. So if you have a water sign, sun, moon, rising, we're just going to do a channeled reading and flow with the messages coming through. and just bring through the channel messages that just flow with the ones coming through for you right now. We're going to start this. We're going to do a full channel mode after that. Maybe we'll hang out after that, but then we'll just start this reading. Should we start the reading? I feel very torn on starting this reading for some reason, so I apologize. They're just saying to start the reading. They got me, so we'll start the reading and we'll do this, and here we go. So first thing showing up for the water signs here, funny enough, kind of a pun, but there is like a tidal wave. I feel like you are riding the wave, or if you're not and there's a wave coming, I would definitely like ride the waves right now. They are taking you to a good place. Sometimes like surprise changes hit and we're like, what gives, universe? I thought we were cool. I thought we worked this one out 5 years ago or whatever. But it's like the change, the reason that's happening is to like get you to what's for you again, or get you to like a good place. So and sometimes something's just not for you. It's just like a segue point on the journey, or it's a stepping stone to the destination that's a bit more permanent, whether it's a living residence or it's a person you're dating, or I know that's difficult to hear sometimes, so that's not going to be all of you, of course, or it's a job. So one thing I want to say for you guys is like not to see your current situations as permanent right now. You're kind of all in the segue in some way, shape, or form. Like kind of like everyone else, a lot is like changing, and you're riding the wave. And sometimes when things like settle down for like a month or two or a certain amount of time, we think like, oh, this is my new normal. But the new normal could be still on the way, or you could still be surfing to it, and you're just in the middle of like hitting this stepping stone and jumping to the next one. But because it's a bigger overarching thing, maybe it seems more like in slow motion in some way. So you think it's long lasting, but it's not. And I'm not saying all your relationships are going to break up and you're all going to be divorced. That's not what I'm saying. But certain circumstances in your life that you might think are permanent or you're getting comfortable with might not be. So ride the waves of change. If the stepping stone you're on starts to go underwater and you need to step to the next one, or something like that, if that makes sense. You're all kind of surfers right now, metaphorically. And if you're surfing the waves, you're doing great. Even if it feels a little bit wobbly sometimes, or you're not sure what's coming next, that is okay. You're right where you need to be. Next, they're showing me selenite. I am getting this reminder again. I'd really be clearing your energies every day, working with your energies, balancing yourself out, whether it's self sessions or putting something on YouTube, sound healing, whatever works or resonates for you, whatever modality works or resonates for you. It's going to be very helpful, and allowing yourself to be balanced or working on yourself to be balanced is going to allow you to be a pillar of stability where no one else might be stable, if that makes, not that literally no one's going to be stable, but I'm sure there's other water signs around you where other people will have stability in some way. But even if no one else around you is stable, or allow you keeping yourself balanced is going to allow you to be the stability, so you don't lose balance because someone on roller skates over here is like losing their balance and trying to catch themselves on your shoulder or something like that. So the best way for you to get stability right now is to get balanced, even if that's just energetically and then the physical follows suit or something like that. Do your best to stay balanced and keep your energies clear every day. You don't need to freak out about it and make it like I just touched a homeless man. Like you don't need to, freak out about that. But maybe at the end of every day, as you feel called to, when you're intuitively guided to, just cleanse your energies and whatever ways work for you, and just go from there. And it's probably okay to accidentally touch a homeless man, by the way. We don't need to be afraid of everybody. But do what works for you, I guess. And also not to denigrate the homeless. Anyways, let's move on to the next message here for you guys. They are showing me another crystal here, but it's like a pile of crystals. Treasure has been kind of a symbol running through some of these readings, but it's almost like a treasure. And it's like you're really uncovering this, but you're almost like afraid to have this treasure. Like you might be afraid of what people think, or afraid to be great or amazing. You might be afraid of having money for fear of what your family will think. Or you might be afraid of what people will think if this manifestation comes in. I would take the treasure anyways. If people would be mad at you for having treasure, or would ostracize you, or aren't able to overcome their stuff enough to applaud you doing while they're having treasure, instead of judging, being jealous, being awful towards you, they probably aren't the people you would like to be around as like your support system or anyways, because they're not going to support you beyond like keeping you down, you know? And like, sure, maybe they'd be someone who would give you a place to stay if you needed it in a pinch. But at the end of the day, we can't have people around who are going to tear us down the second we're winning. And that's not a good reason to keep yourself from being successful, is because your mom will dislike you or be judgmental or hate you for having money or something like that. It's you're just shooting yourself in the foot if you're letting the judgments of others keep you from what's for you or from your treasure in life. Because the universe could be giving this because you deserve it, or you earned it a long time ago, or maybe even because you need it for some reason. And I think sometimes we push back our treasure because we're afraid of what people think, and we need to embrace it and own it and not self-sabotage based on the projections, judgments of others haven't dealt with their own stuff, because that's all them. And you're also teaching them a lesson and helping them out by having that treasure and doing better and winning, because then they are forced to potentially examine themselves or what they would like to change in their lives if they're jealous. And they'll have to, if they are good and they realize what's going on with them, they'll be forced to rearrange for the better for themselves. So you're actually doing more good by accepting and receiving your treasure and what's for you than by withholding it, regardless of the virtuous tales we've been told in religion or the Bible or whatever. Whatever weird teachings we've been inundated with when we were growing up that were probably also conflicting and weird. Anyways, whatever stories we were handed, if that makes sense, and judgments. I feel like you are due treasures, so just receive it. Set the intention to receive it. I received the treasure, that's for me. I received the good, that's for me. I'm free from allowing others to harm my treasure. I don't know, whatever you want to do to start moving the energies and setting intentions to help yourself. But and sometimes the intention is all you need. You know, sometimes we need intention and action, but take it for whatever you're guided to do for your particular situations. Each and every one, even maybe. Whatever works for you. Next here, Zebra showing up for your reading as well. You as well are getting a message that you are unique and you need to own it. I feel like you, again, have so much treasure coming if you are unique, kind of similar to the other reading. I think sometimes it's tempting to try to be like everyone else to fit in, but it never really works. Like, you kind of have to be what you are called to be in your soul. And again, that's going to be bringing in more of what's for you, or you'll be able to embrace it more easily, if that makes sense. It reminds me of like a story commonly found in like certain like movies where there's like a protagonist or a hero. I don't know if it's the hero's journey or what, but they all of a sudden have a gift or this ability, and they're like trying to hide it from everyone else in order to fit in or to avoid being bullied or whatever. And but it's actually what makes them special and unique and amazing, and brings them to the top in the end, and brings them to victory in their personal life, and usually for the sake of the world or the land or people, whatever, for the highest good. And you might be doing that a little bit, where you have this uniqueness to you and you're like hiding it because you don't want to be shunned, or you don't want to stand out in a negative way and be beat up for it. I don't think you need to worry about that. I feel like you're divinely protected, and the more you shine at the unique you, the more it catches on as like almost like a trend or a healthy thing or example for others to follow. So I'd keep that in mind as well, as far as being your unique self and owning what makes you unique and amazing, instead of hiding it for fear of what others might think. Because they'll learn, and they'll either accept you or they won't, and life will move on, and you'll find the people that do accept you. So usually, at least eventually. And I think like an example, it could even be like me doing this right now, like channeling for this reading and doing this right now. Like at first it was weird to tell people about. Like I did have some people in my life that already knew this side of me. But it was still something to overcome, to just do this more publicly, like, because eventually my parents would find out, and they kind of already knew I was spiritual, but like they'd see my TikToks or they'd see my Instagram and they'd see the full channel mode and they'd be like, what the heck is going on with this kid? and all that stuff. But, one, they've been a lot better about it overall than there were definitely some rough periods where I just had to have fortitude, honestly. But eventually people either grow to accept it or they don't, and you just move on from them. And I've had much better experiences with like you guys or, the person I'm dating who really love all of the sides of me, like me doing this and all that. And so eventually you find the people who will accept all of you, even if you have to go through some dumb stuff with the people who don't get it right away. But it is worth it in the end, or it moves you in the direction that is worth it for you. And again, like trust your own discernment and intuition. Maybe you don't need to tell everyone at work that you're a channeler, for example, or that you do XYZ thing. Maybe you can wait till it's off the ground a bit more. We're about to leave and you're like, yeah, I do this thing, before you do it. So it really depends on your personal circumstances. And you don't need to blow your life up if you're not ready to do that, but keep that in mind. Owning your unique value is going to be helpful for you right now. The other meaning that was kind of popping in was like not just following the crowd with something you're doing. Like maybe you're an artist, for example, and you love doing this really cool, I don't know, pop-up art, but everyone else is doing anime. So you're like, well, anime is the popular thing, so I'm going to do anime, I guess. But then it's like you don't like stand out from the crowd. You're not finding your people. Maybe you're finding some success, but it's like you need to do like what the unique calling is for you, and do your pop-up art. And the annoying thing is there have been times where it kind of speaks to the rants and conversation we were having before this reading. If you're watching on YouTube, you can rewind to see the whole thing. But it's like there'd be times where I would get a channeled message about like how things would work, for example, and I'd be like, oh, this is how it works. And then like even like someone I would watch a lot on YouTube who created this modality, this thing, and they have all this clout, and they'd be like, it works like this. And I'd be like, oh, I'm getting this message over here. They're saying this. And then like 2 or 3 years later, they're saying exactly what I got 2 or 3 years ago is the way it worked. They changed their mind. So you sometimes need to trust yourself. I know that's speaking to a different layer of things, but with what you're getting is the right direction for you, or even with your art, because this might be the thing that pops off, no pun intended, with pop-up art in like 2 or 3 years. And then everyone's doing pop-up art. And it's like I'm not going to say you missed your chance to stand out, but you could have been doing that all along and caught the wave of pop-up art trends when it happened and been ahead of the curve in some ways, if that makes sense, by doing what was uniquely yours to do. So make sure, again, owning your unique value. I was going to bring in another example for me that might help spell it out a bit more as well, or that pertains to me, but they're telling me to skip it. So we'll just move to something else. If they want to mention it, they will. So next, don't mind my hands. Next message here that they like to get to here. So I know we talked about riding the waves already. They're mentioning riding the waves of change again. You might also have changes in direction you don't see coming, either happening now, recent past, or just in the future. I feel like it's very divinely guided. Like you might be riding one wave this way and another wave comes and sweeps you this way, and you kind of have to change directions and pivot. There's so much like change and like redirection happening for the collective and like reshuffling that a lot of people are going to be redirected a few times is what I'm getting before things like settle in a bit more. So just keep riding the waves, whatever direction they take you. Because you might feel called to this project. And then like you do that project and the universe is like, okay, great, put it down and do this other thing. And you're like, we just spent, what do you mean? Like, yeah, you did that and now we're doing this. And so it might not make sense, but in the grand scheme of things, like it doesn't mean you're like getting rid of that project forever. It could be like you're meant to bring this project to the world at a later time. You need to work on something else, or maybe you were only meant to do that project for a certain amount of time, or bring that project to the world for a certain amount of time before changing gears and doing something that's going to serve the collective more, that you've up-leveled to this new level where you're doing something else or something like that. So, or maybe the collective just wasn't ready for what you're going to be doing in the future, and the universe gave you this thing in the meantime that was helpful for people, did good things for you in the world, but maybe it wasn't supposed to be the end-all be-all. Or, you understand. There's all these different things that could play out as why. That's the thing that's happening. But I would just trust the process in this because of all the change happening and all the puzzle pieces rearranging and all the people and things reorganizing. Like, you might be called to several different changes, and that's okay. Honestly, it's getting you to where you need to go in the long run perfectly. I need to like rewrite a little bit of what I just said, so give me 1 second to sit with it and see what they have to say on that here. The way they're summarizing it is just trust the different paths you're guided to. It's all going to make sense. So hopefully that makes sense. Next, they're showing me like a castle. It's this castle that's surrounded by this, like, I guess you could say moat, but it almost looks more like a lake. Like, it's almost on like an island. It has like a drawbridge. It almost looks like a fairy tale castle or something out of Europe, but it's very vivid. They're showing me this like aerial view, almost like of the castle, almost like from a drone shot. It is kind of what it looks like. There is this dragon on this castle. He's blue. He's good. And he's like saying to you, like, what are you waiting for? Your castle is right here. Like, you need to walk to your castle and take ownership of it. So you might have something you've been called to for a while that you've been neglecting or like putting off, but you really need to do it or walk over to it. Because there are things that are for you that are ready, and you might be like ignoring it or just like not moving towards it. And this dragon's like, we prepared this for you for a while. It's ready. Like, come over to your castle. And you're kind of like dawdling. You're kind of playing in the moat. You're looking over at this like shack you used to live in, like thinking, oh, I need to go back to my shack. It's like, and there's just like, you're like halfway there. Just keep walking to your castle. So anything you're neglecting, you know you need to do, especially if it's going to bring in good things, like move towards it. If that makes any sense to you. Because it's like, there are these really amazing things. You just have to kind of remember to keep moving towards them and not give up on them, because they're ready for you now. Like, the drawbridge is down. It's your castle. It reminds me of the Five of Cups almost in tarot. It's not the same kind of message. In Five of Cups, it's like, yeah, you like spilled some milk, you lost a few things, but you have so much more if you'll just look at the cups you do have and like the castle behind you that's ready for you. They didn't like that because it's not the same message. The message they're trying to get to is not neglecting what's for you. That's like an amazing reward of some kind or a direction for you to go. And that's going to be fantastic. So the next thing they'd like to get to, they're showing me these fairies. We're in this like fairy forest right now. A lot of people are afraid of fairies. They don't need to be. What I get is that trickster energy is a bit of a lie. It doesn't exist quite like people say. There are a lot of, I'm not trying to call anyone out here. I'm sure a lot of people here that do this work are great, but there are a lot of fear-based like mediums who purport it. And it's another one of those new age things that I'm very hesitant on. Anyways, the message they're trying to get to here is there is a lot of magic on the way. I also feel like things are going to work out totally different than you expect, like in a very magical way. Again, like you might be expecting a shack when you're getting a castle, or you might be expecting like, I have to be careful with this one. You might be expecting certain people like break up with you and then they like propose to you or something like that. You might be expecting like, oh, I have to go work this 9-to-5 dull, boring job, but then the universe gives you like another business, or something like that. So I don't think you need to freak out about where you're going. There's a lot more magic around your path than you realize. And sometimes when you get acclimated to a magical path or a lot of magic in your world, you kind of, not in a bad way, it's not like you forget it's there, but it becomes your new normal in a way. And that's actually a really empowered and cool place to be, because you're just, for example, like maybe you're getting, I guess from my own example, just getting channel messages all the time in your daily life, and that's just normal for you. And like there might be people out there who get one channel message and freak out. They're like, oh my God, I got a channel message. So I think it's, but same with like synchronicity. Like sometimes people have like one synchronicity, like, whoa. And then like as you up level and get more in tune and you have synchronicity like 24/7, you're like, yeah, of course that's how it works. That's how my world is. So I feel like your world's going to up level magically again though. So there might be a little bit more of like a childlike fantasy aspect to, your world. That's where the magic up levels. And again, like you're heading to something more magical than I think you are, or things are going to turn out differently than you think they are, because there is more magic to your path than you realize. And try not to forget how magical you or your journey is or has been, and how magical it can be, which is infinitely, in a good way that's healthy, balanced, optimally grounded if need be, etc. If that makes sense. For some reason, they want me to talk about this woman that I met one time. And this is nothing like bad or wrong to her, but for some reason, one of the conversations from the before this reading is like sticking out to me, where someone said something about. I read it in the comments really quickly, and I think I was guided to talk about something else or respond to someone else. But they mentioned that like their mom or someone in their life is so like far out there that it's like really impossible to like find a common ground or like talk to each other. It's like so off into outer space. I don't know why I'm called to talk about this woman, but maybe they'll have a message after I talk about it. And again, if you were like this or you've done this, no harm, no foul. I'm not saying you did anything wrong or bad. It's just I found this interesting. One time I was working at a job, and of all people they could have done this to, I was probably one of the safer ones to do it to, because this woman, I worked at a Whole Foods in the bakery department a long time ago by now. And this woman came up and she's like, I'm not from planet Earth. I'm from planet like Zion or something. She's like, all this Earth stuff makes no sense to me. This is freaking weird. And she was like this woman who were in her 80s who just didn't give an F anymore, I think. I don't even think she had any like big mental illness things going on, honestly, based on what I'm getting right now. And I'm like, I didn't like make fun of her, or I don't think I judged her. I'm getting. And I was very much in the channeling like intuition realm at that place. It was really ramping up a lot at that time, actually. But it was very interesting to me that someone would just walk up and say it in public. And that's not something I go around. Like honestly, I have a slightly different perspective on all that angle of where people came from anyways, slightly. But why am I being called to mention this right now? Maybe your life's going to be magical where you can say things like that to people and people accept it if that's your truth, and things like that. But where are we going with this? What's the moral of the story, angels? I think the other angle though is just try to be discerning with what you're saying to people. Sometimes it's not always the right move to bludgeon people over the head with spirituality. So let's move on, because I don't know why. Hopefully maybe there's a message or story in that for you that's helpful for you. But let's move on to the next thing they'd like to get to here. And maybe that had to do with like the grounded magic or optimally grounded magic in life here. Next, they're showing me a paraglider. They're showing this updraft hitting this paraglider and setting it higher, but it's like a little bit rough. It's like the winds aren't like even. So I feel like you're being updrafted and brought higher, but sometimes there's like a release that happens with that, or it's a little bit rockier than we would have liked. So I think if you just kind of stick with it, it gets smoother, honestly, regarding like any up-leveling you're doing or upgrading or updrafts that are hitting your world. You are going to go higher, so just be patient with that is what I'd say. Beyond that, I know they love waterfalls for these readings. Sometimes there is another waterfall showing up here. But this waterfall is like parting. There's like a stone that juts out of it or a statue. It's like an angel goddess statue, and the water parts. And it like kind of displays the secret cave behind the waterfall for you. So another message is like there are secret passages or ways forward being unveiled to you, or like surprise happenings for you that you like never in a million years thought things would work out this way, but it does. So it could be like a secret tunnel. If anyone wants to sing the Avatar Last Airbender's secret tunnel song, now's the best time. Secret tunnel. It's a jam. But anyways, there's like the secret tunnel opening you up to a destination that you always knew you were supposed to go to, or a destiny you knew you were supposed to go, but you weren't sure how it was going to happen, or maybe even like money. You get a secret passageway that for like an opportunity in business, or on the side that brings in the money you need, or more money, or a better financial position. So I feel like there are like secret opportunities being unveiled that you've missed or that have been hidden, and like you've hit the right buttons to like unveil this. So it's already happening. It's just maybe it hasn't fully unveiled yet. So keep an eye out for new ideas, new opportunities in business or work, or maybe even new opportunities in friendships that open up for you that could be helpful. Especially, I keep getting money for some reason, but also as like a job, or it could be like something that's different than that, like friendship in your world. But there's some type of destination for the highest good that's opening up for you that's been like hidden from you as like a timing thing. And I feel like it's going to be magical, grounded magical in the way it happens. So I feel like we're almost done with the reading. They're showing me a butterfly, but the butterfly has like tiger stripes or like polka dots. It's like unorthodox, like what this butterfly's pattern is. You aren't meant to, what's the best way to say this? I feel like we've been beating this to a pulp, but you're not meant to blend in with normal people, if that makes sense. You might have polka dots on your butterfly wings, metaphorically, because you're meant to stand out, or tiger stripes on your butterfly wings because you're meant to stand out. And maybe in like the right ways and places where you're meant to blend in, you blend in. But it has to be in the right places. So you're hidden from danger in the right ways, but you're not meant to be a normal butterfly. Maybe even by like butterfly people standards, if that makes sense. You're meant to stand out, and again, this message coming through, be unique. And again, that's going to help you succeed. It's going to help you get the attention you deserve or are supposed to have for the highest good. So don't be afraid of your uniqueness, your stripes, even your appearance. Maybe some of you is meant to lead you somewhere unique. Like maybe the tiger striped butterfly is meant to blend in with tigers, and the polka dot butterfly is meant to blend in with gumballs. And it's very unorthodox and odd, but it would make sense for that creature and the life it was supposed to live. And that's why you need to own your uniqueness for the life you're meant to live, even if it looks different than everyone else's. And that might be why you stand out or feel like you stand out, is something I'm getting. It's like you're just meant for something different. You're meant to stand out. You're not meant to be like everyone else and doing the same thing. And you being different and bringing that difference to the world does change the world, especially if you walk your path that you're meant to and fit the puzzle piece you're meant to this lifetime, which again could be a very unique, oddly shaped puzzle piece that only makes sense for that puzzle piece and its position in the puzzle of life or its life. But it's an honor to be that when you see the grand scheme of things. Not that the other pieces aren't needed or aren't worthy, or, if that makes sense. I feel like I'm done, actually. They're like, boom, done, no more reading. So hope that helped and resonated. Do whatever was for your eyes good. I'm going to end it there. There might have been one more message, but there was like a hot air balloon. I feel like if you're moving, because they're showing me the Remax balloon, it's going to be a good move. So don't worry if you're moving, things will work out. Even if you're forced to move or it's against your will or something, like you're going to find a good place. It's going to be okay. So hope that helped, resonated, was for the highest good. Do whatever was for your highest good. I need to use the restroom really badly. So building a house, heck yeah. I'm going to be back in like 2 minutes after I use the restroom. So please bear with me for a second. We're going to have a slight intermission here. I wish I had some like elevator music to play for you, but I don't. I'm sorry. I'll be back in like 2 minutes because I like can barely like walk right now, I think. Okay. Boop, boop, boop. All right. Thanks, Marina, for pinning that comment. Thank you so much, Brandon. I really appreciate your guidance and messages as always. You're welcome. You're welcome. Whew. Okay, so we might hang out for a second, but they're saying it's time for full channel mode message. I guess if anyone dropped off while I was in the bathroom, they just weren't meant to be here for the full channel mode message, so. You truly are able to give readings for each person. Thank you. I really appreciate that. It's good to know, for sure. Good feedback. I mean, I always trust that in the first place, but thank you. So, for full channel mode here, I was getting it's going to be about transition. I feel like I've already done full channel mode messages about transition, but maybe there's more, there's different information, there's something more deeply to go into. So they're also talking about the solar plexus, and maybe they'll add in some messages about power. I already did like a 12 to 13 minute full channel mode message kind of exclusively on Instagram about power. That was the topic they wanted to channel on for Instagram. I think I'm kind of transitioning the channeled Timeless Tuesday readings on Instagram to just full channel mode messages when I'm called, and maybe I'll post some more text posts that are channeled as well and kind of switch up the content there. I've been feeling a little bit called to switch up some of my content, so we'll see what happens. But if you feel called to watch more, there is more on Instagram as well for the full channel mode. So every time I see B on the screen and take a deep breath, it's like he reminds me to breathe. Oh, that's a compliment. Thank you, Jennifer. I love it. It's such a pleasant surprise whenever it pops up. Thanks, Jillian. That means a lot. It's like a breath of fresh air. That is a huge compliment. Thank you, guys. I so appreciate that. So for anyone new, when I'm full channel mode, I mean, usually my eyes are closed. I'm just bringing the channel messages through. It's my spirit guides, the angels and source, channeling directly through me, speaking through me. A couple things to watch out for. One, the verbal message, of course, that they're bringing through that can always apply and is usually always helpful. At least, yeah, is what I'd say, at least to some degree, but hopefully to the vastest degree possible. As well as there's also like a frequency or energetic transmission that goes along with it from source that can do like energy healing, upgrading, whatever work is for your highest good, like regarding the topic or in general. So depending on what's for the highest good. And it can also open your intuition, your gifts and abilities that are for the highest good to be opened at this time as well. So you might find that your intuition opens up while I'm channeling as well, or if you're meant to channel, maybe you're channeling. In the past, I don't need this anymore so much. Sometimes it maybe is still helpful, and there's not a lot of different channelers I listen to, but there have been times in the past where I would listen to a full channel mode message from someone else, and that's when my spirit guides would have me open up a notebook and start channeling some information they really wanted to bring through for me. So sometimes, I don't know if piggyback's the right word. You can either piggyback off the frequency or it just helps you for the highest good. So take it as it resonates. Let the experience be what it's meant to be for you. And we'll give me 1 second and see when we should dive in here. We're going to channel right now. So if you need a name for my guides, they go by the Angelic Collective of Zorbidal. But at the same time, there's not really names up there. So it's just something for you to grasp onto, I guess, as a name. We're going to start. So give me 1 second. And usually I'll cough and they'll do a little laugh thing and then we'll start. So here we go. Welcome, Ascending Collective. For you are ascending more than ever before with ease. Some of you may resonate with ascension and that term. Others of you may shy away from the term based on past experiences you've had with people who are full bore into ascension mindsets or ascension type pathways. But the important thing is that you are approaching the topic and things that are right for you. You do not have to appear a certain way spiritually or approach your path the exact same way as someone else in order for it to be legitimate for you. Sometimes it is tempting to see a guru or teacher purporting a specific path or way things work And you might think that must be the way. It seems to work for so many people. And maybe it does. Or maybe it's a segue at the level of consciousness that group is at that they need to take to get to the next level. And they will leave those teachings behind at a later time. Not always. Some readings, messages, teachings are more timeless, are something that pulls you up instead of being a temporary stopgap for your understanding in life. So we're not saying all spiritual teachings, gurus are false or only temporary, but we are reminding you that not everyone on earth has it figured out to the degree that you need to follow everyone else and their opinions in life, in spirituality, and your spiritual path does not need to look like another's in order to be valid or to have merit. Conversely, some of you with the most unique spiritual pathways, ideas, channel messages are the ones who are actually accurate in your life and with spirituality. And you are shown that because you are ready for it and you do not have a ton of mental gunk or junk or beliefs in the way of that message getting through to you. So it is good to be careful about being mindful and aware of the messages you're receiving. Is it balanced? Does it resonate? Does the universe back you up or back that message up with that's how it works as you garner more experience around that topic, for example? It's good to be mindful and aware and balanced. At the same time, it's good to trust yourself and not get wrapped up in the teachings of others that don't resonate or do not serve you. They might not be at the level you need to go higher. So you are ascending, and that doesn't have to mean that it looks like the stereotypical YouTube ascension guru path. It could be you being more in play and higher frequency in a way that works for you. It could be you doing something totally different than that. You might be teaching conscious business practices. You might be setting an example for being a conscious business person in the world, or you're on that path to become that. And that doesn't look like talking about the fifth dimension to people on YouTube. That looks like teaching conscious business practices. Don't screw people over. Do it for the highest good. Yada, yada. You catch our drift. So you can be ascending without being focused on the specific set of beliefs about the fifth dimension or how the fifth dimension works, how the afterlife works. You can be ascending without all of that. So do not pigeonhole yourself into the teachings of others to try to get a desired result or outcome. There might be an easier or better way. That is our main message we wish to give to you regarding that topic. For again, it is so tempting to see someone who appears to have clout or be doing well teaching this thing, and they seem to be getting this result. But the question is, are they? If you read their energies, are they getting that result? If they are, maybe it's a good idea to listen to them. But if not, and they are just speaking out their butt, maybe it's time to change the channel on YouTube and get back in tune with yourself in the way you know to be true to get back to your soul. For others can be way showers, others can spark ideas, but your journey is in your hands along with the hands of the divine. It does not need to be in the hands of a third party beyond that. Unless there's a message the divine is bringing through that third party. But then again, that is the divine working through them. That is part of your journey. That is not that individual's ego getting in the way and shuffling you onto a path that's not right for you, whether it looks like ascension or something else. That is how cults begin. It's when the ego takes over. And you aren't meant to be in a cult. You are meant to be living your own life with your own connection, to whatever degree you are meant to have yours, your own intuition, not wrapped up in the teachings of others that would lead you astray, if any. And most of you are good at catching this. None of you are so lost that you go in the totally wrong direction right now. But it is an important reminder for this time with the energies that are unveiling themselves and the people who are trying to put themselves on the pulpit to teach. For their agenda is an important thing to keep in mind when they are teaching and with what they're teaching. So, what does this have to do with transition? Well, you are transitioning out of your reliance on others. It might seem slow. You might not even agree right now with how your world looks. But when it comes to your spirituality, transitioning out of your codependence or reliance on others is a great move for you to make. It might sound odd coming out of the mouth of a channel that we are telling you to forego too many other mouths. You might even feel called away from this channel, this teacher, Brandon in the chair, coming away from this message at some point. It doesn't mean he is wrong or his teachings are false. It just means you need something else. Others of you might be drawn more to it. So we do not judge what is right for you and what your journey is. We urge you to do what is right for you, for your highest good. For we are not attached to you listening to this channel or being hung up on our every word. What we are going for is what's best for you. So that is why we say, get in tune for yourselves the best you can. Learn your self-reliance with yourself and with Source in your journey. And if you need to go to another, that is okay. You are meant to go to others at times. You are meant to listen to others at times. You are meant to listen to channels at times or readings or things like that at the appropriate time that's helpful for you. But your journey is yours. It's not meant to be hijacked by someone coming from ego, trying to get you into their group or your cult, their cults, or anything of the sort. Your journey is not meant to be hijacked by another spiritual teacher. That is spiritual teaching done wrong, if we were to use that word. That is something to watch out for. So are you ready to go on your own journey and transition to that and allow others who are teachers, healers to be supports to that rather than the people who take over that to any capacity? Because they're meant to be supports and helps. They're not meant to be your journey in totality. They're not meant to take over. For you are also the divine. You're not lesser than another. No matter the role they take on in life, no matter the role you take on in life, you all go back to Source when you die. You all go back to higher realms when you die. So how could you be lesser or greater than another when you all stem from that place? Even if you signed up for different things, different experiences, if you signed up to be someone different than the spiritual leader, it does not make you less than. There are all sorts of people here on earth for different reasons. So you do not need to judge their journeys. And you do not need to think of yourself as lesser than. So how do you become more self-reliant? Much of this conversation today, through the readings, in between, has been about that. You might have seen how we guided Brandon to speak about topics a bit more between the readings, even if it was spurred on by you in the crowd. Perhaps you felt the divine nudge to ask those questions or bring that about. Perhaps the universe was working through you to bring that about. Perhaps I will open a new pathway that opens a new direction, that allows for different information to come true. And that is a good direction. The next thing we'll get to it is time for the new pathways to open up for all of you. Whether it's happening through the divine working through another or directly through you. Some of the massive change we keep talking about, some of the massive transition, the reshuffling on earth of all people, their roles, their identities, all of that, over the next 10 years for sure. There's going to be a lot of divine guidance in the things around you. Again, that does not mean hang on the word of toxic spiritual teaching. It does not mean that you have to listen to the healers in your life verbatim or else. It could be through a friend that you do not see as spiritual, yet the things they say to you are very synchronistic to your journey and lead you in a specific direction, perhaps even without them realizing it, perhaps even without you talking directly to that thing. For the universe works through all. The universe is all on a certain level. So you could find the universe working through your friend, unbeknownst to them perhaps, in the thing they say that is synchronistic and leads you on your journey. So when we say become self-sufficient, it does not mean ignore others. It means recognize when it is others or when it is the divine through others. Recognize what your divine pathway is and transitioning into that through the divine guidance you receive through synchronicity, directly, through others, through your life, whether it's through a reader and that is, it's rather known that that's what's happening or not. And you getting in tune is going to be your solution. So anywhere you're working on your energies, gathering energetic awareness, expanding that, whether you're working with crystals, doing energy healing sessions, learning a modality, practicing channeling on your own, meditating, whatever works for you. But that path back to yourself is going to be the most important in this day and age, with all that's flying around in the news, in spirituality, in any topic. And that path back to you will lead you to what is for you. That is our message. We do realize we did segue halfway through and redirect the conversation, but that was how it was meant to be. The last thing we'll talk about, the Lion's Gate. You are in an elevated energetic pathway right now, and you could create these things for yourself on your own or with your intention, with group intention. You do not need a Lion's Gate to do this. However, you are being elevated right now. There is a vast expanse of new energies coming to Earth. Higher frequencies you've never thought of before even, or experienced before, that are higher than before. One of the traps we'd like you to let go of is having everything have to fit to a word in your human experience and language. You might have a new frequency or experience that doesn't have a word for it. And it's important to honor that. You do not always have to fit it into words. You do not always have to force it to fit. For there are experiences that go beyond words. Knowing that goes beyond words. Frequencies coming in that go beyond words. So, be open to those. What is possible beyond words? That is a question we would encourage you to ask, to see what the universe brings your way as an answer, to manifest an answer to that question. So we are wishing you well. We are wishing you grace through this elevated energy and path and time period. And know that you can take that energy with you forward whenever you need it, whenever you call upon it. Know you are not limited to a time period when it comes to energy work or energetic propulsion. There is still divine timing at play in your life. You cannot always force things to happen. But now is the right time to set intentions and begin to shift your life. We're wishing you well. We are signing out for now. The Angelic Collective of Zorbital and Source. Farewell. Cool. Hope that one was good and did whatever was for the highest good for it to do. You're welcome. You're welcome, guys. Ooh. Ah, perfect, Elizabeth. You're welcome. Oh, I appreciate it, guys. You're welcome, Tracy. I appreciate that. One piece of news is I am going to be doing, if you weren't here at the beginning, a live for the Lionsgate actually on 8/8 on YouTube actually. So if you feel called to subscribe to me there, awesome. I'll be doing that, I think 6 p.m. Central Time, as is scheduled right now. And it's going to be doing like a full channel mode, perhaps a channel guided meditation as well, or maybe it'll be a full channel mode message that segues into a channel guided meditation. We'll see how it shows up, but or maybe both separated. It's just going to be to make the most of the Lionsgate, though of course you don't always have to do it on Lionsgate to get that effect or to bring that energy in. So that's going to be Tuesday. And so one caveat is that my following on YouTube isn't as big. So I think I'm still under 1,000 followers there, which means you can only show up for the live if you're, I think I can have 25 people who aren't subscribed show up for the live. Beyond that, if you're subscribed, you should be able to join however many of you are subscribed. So that's the only thing that's about that, is because I have less than 1,000 subscribers there. I'm limited to the amount of non-subscribed people that can show up for the live, which I'm not sure why my guides were saying to do it on YouTube, but like it was like before the beginning of the month, they're like, do a Lionsgate live on YouTube. I'm like, what about TikTok? They're like, no. I'm like, okay. So we're trying it out. So I hope that was, so if I'll see you there, awesome. If not, I hope you have a fantastic week in the Lionsgate. I might hang out for a second before I part ways with you guys for this live, but 6 Central Time, so it would be 7 EST, 7 Eastern. What is the Lionsgate? Well, that is a question. So there's a couple different ways I could approach that, but it's pretty much like on the 8/8, August 8th. There's a couple different perspectives, but the way it's commonly purported, and I have my own views that I'll happily share as well. It's like this kind of like I don't like the word portal either. I don't know if that describes it, but what's supposed to happen is you kind of have elevated energies for manifestation, for spiritual growth, and things like that. So it's really a good time to manifest. There's supposed to be something astrologically, I think, where it lines up with a specific constellation. I think it is the Lyrans, right? I don't remember. Where that there's like supposed to be some astrological reason it happens, I guess, according to astrology. To me, what I kind of get is a lot of it can also just be the collective intent of like, this is 8/8, and so 8/8 like becomes that, if that makes sense. So you can kind of piggyback off the collective intent of what 8/8 is to manifest, perhaps more. But that's also why I believe my guides will bring through, like, you can create that energy at any time, because you could, in theory, just intend and create an energy of elevated manifestation at any time. But I think it just depends on what you feel called to and what works best for you intuitively and all that. So, but yeah, 8/8 is supposed to be a good time to manifest and be a very spiritually elevated day, according to people. Yeah, you're welcome. Hope that answered that. Heaven is timeless. Yeah, I hear that. I hear that. What else was it? I thought there was something else I was saying. I completely forgot. You're welcome, guys. So the other things I'll do just for, I guess, just to self-promote, I guess, and because that's something I should get better at doing, is if there's anything I should. I do have some energy healing classes coming up in the next few months for the source fires, which is a modality I received that's been getting really amazing feedback. So it's an energy healing modality you can work with. If you feel called to that, you can schedule that on my website. I probably need to get more resources available as far as like giving that its own website and the testimonials and things from that. But if, for those of you who are intuitive and know if it's right for you, you could just trust your intuition on that. But we have one coming up at the end of this month, August, I believe. And then we have like the next series of 3 classes for that modality over the next few months. So if you'd like to, I don't know if I encourage super speed running it, because it can be, some of the attunements have seemed like a lot for some of the students. But if you feel called to it, this would be a good time to hop on board just for the next couple of classes, because there are 3 available right now. And so that's available. If you feel called to it, you can book it through my website, or you can email me, or actually send a contact form through my website if you have questions or are wondering about it. Beyond that, I do also have the monthly membership. So we did change the membership a little bit, recently, where it is a paid membership, that membership, but you get a monthly long full channel mode message, about 45 minutes to an hour plus, on like whatever topic they deem would be the topic to bring through for you guys. There's depending on the level you're at, there's a exclusive channel guided meditation as well that comes out each month. There's also, we're doing in-depth readings and channeling on the month ahead at the beginning of each month as well. So there's a free newsletter where I do that. The membership is kind of going further into the month, and it's also specific for the members, and it's for that group exclusively. So it can go deep in that way. I never want to limit the big groups either, though, because I feel like I can go deep and specific for big groups as well, but you understand. But it's kind of tailor-made for the group that'll be showing up and watching that reading each month. And then beyond that, you'll also have access to the whole library of all the timeless content that's there, previous iterations of content that I don't post there anymore, such as channeled timeless readings and things like that. So you also get big discounts if you're called to that. I think that's it. Oh, I did also launch a new channel guided MP3. So it's a channel guided exercise. So it's akin to a meditation, but it's called Create the Highest and Best Day for You. And there's meant to be an intention in that title. So that's also on the homepage of my website or store. You can find it. It's at $10. It's about 20 minutes. And so what it's meant to do is at the beginning of the day, you have the energetic transmission from the channel, but also the exercises you are led through in that like 20 minutes to set intentions for your day, clear your energies, do different things to just set you up for creating a better day for yourself, essentially. And over time, it's meant to improve your days and your life is one of my intentions with it for the highest good. So if again, trust your intuition. If you're called to it, you get a yes. Awesome. That's available there. If not, that's okay. I'd rather you get what's right for you and for your highest good than I never want to force you into something that's not going to be the right fit for you. So trust yourself on whether you do that or not. Trust your intuition and all that. I guess that's it, honestly. There's some other things available MP3-wise there, but that's all I'm being called to talk about today. Do you still do the shorts on YouTube? I'm considering getting back into it. Finding my flow with like all the different platforms and content has, it's been changing up recently. So I'm doing my best to figure out what's going to be for the highest good for all involved and of service, and also lead to what's for the highest good with all the different content platforms. It can be a lot to keep up with if I'm not staying on it with the schedule, or if I let things get too loose. So I'm going to sit with what the best way to handle that is. Brandon, how are you feeling right now? Any Lionsgate portal physical effects? Just curious. I'm feeling pretty well. I feel like I've been dealing with a lot of release, if I'm being honest, and that's been showing up in a lot of different ways. Whether it's showing up as like triggers or as like certain things like that. So I feel like I'm releasing before the Lionsgate portal is the way I'm hearing it to explain it. Schumann has been rising again. The energies are a lot lately. I can see that. The energies have been very interesting lately, to say the least. But I'd say that's kind of what I'm getting has been happening for me regarding the Lion's Gate. Um, I think I've been feeling good though otherwise. Ooh, okay. Yeah, any other questions while we're while we're hanging out here, guys? We're probably gonna wrap up the live soon, but I don't feel like we're quite done yet. But we'll see. Oh, thank you, Elise Humphrey. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Water, yeah, water's a good idea. I about out. That was my last gulp. My drinking water. I'm trying to. I'm doing my best. Rochelle asks, can your guides work with another person's guides to heal issues? I get yes. Yeah. Pretty common in like healing sessions or even like readings where the reader is bringing a healing aspect to the reading. So absolutely, if it's for the highest good. It does have to be for the highest good of both persons' systems. So say, for instance, I'm doing a reading. It has to be for the highest good of my system that that person's guides, participate or jump in, if that makes sense. But I don't understand why there would be a reason why it wouldn't be in the first place. So that's just what I always hear to explain that. How did you find modalities that work for you? It did take some time. Honestly, for me, I kind of followed the yellow brick road of what was showing up in my world because there was a lot of divine guidance to like what was showing up as I really got into this for starters. I got into this and all of a sudden there were like 7 different people who got messages in different ways, or someone did Reiki and they gave me a free session and told me what Reiki was, and I ended up learning Reiki, and then it went from there to other modalities and other things. And I think thankfully a lot of it's just been shown to me over time. And what else would be highest much for me to say for you on that one? I would honestly, for you, like ask, if you haven't found one that works for you, ask for the universe, ask source for a modality that works for you or the tools that work for you, and start experimenting with the ones that show up, and you're going to find what works. And I feel like it's going to be very obvious when you find the ones that do work, because I feel like if you find ones that don't work, you're actually going to feel worse afterwards in some way, or it's not going to be like as helpful for you long term. I don't feel like I painted that picture correctly, but what's the best way to say this? If you find a modality that's for you, it's going to be working. You're going to get like signs and experiences that show you what's working, if that makes sense. And I think the other thing is like doing the work with that modality once you've learned it, and going deep with that, and not just trying it once and giving up depending on the situation. So if you have your intuition and knowing online, however much you do, like trust your intuition on what you go to, what you learn. Because sometimes you might get the message like, no, this isn't the right modality for you, but this one is. So there's all kind oh my gosh, I'm getting tongue tied. There's all kinds of different things out there. So just go with what shows up and what resonates for you. And if it's working, you'll know. I don't know if that's helpful to hear, but I'd definitely be putting it out there as an intention, like bring me what works, bring me the tools and modalities that work for me, even if it's different than everyone else or unorthodox or whatever, because what's important is that you're finding what's working for you. Earth Angel 444 says, you channel deities? Thanks, Brandon. I can. It can be a part of what I do. Like, I'm not usually sitting here specifically asking to channel like Ganesha when I show up and channel for a reading, but if it's for the highest good and it fits with what's for the highest good to happen, they do channel through, or I have. Or they've been a part of like readings I've done. Even if it's like source showing up as that deity or working through the guise of that deity. But my experience is that deities only really work for the highest good, kind of like highest consciousness, like source. I've never encountered a deity to be afraid of, or even deities that people would say to be afraid of, I'd run into someone else and be like, yeah, I've been called to work with like Anubis, but I'm really nervous about it. And what I would get is like, oh, well, I'm getting he's actually helping you with overcoming like the death of this loved one that just died. And like he's helping you like work through grief and like fear of death. And so it wasn't like, oh, he's here to drop you and ruin your life. It was like, it actually felt very gentle and for the highest good and divine. It didn't feel like mean Anubis punch you in face. So that's been my experience with deities. Maybe someone else, I don't know. I'm going to speak to my experience and what I get. I'm not going to try and share other people's experiences, just because that's not what I've experienced. But yeah, and as far as channeling deities, I've definitely done it before. There was one time where Ganesha would show up a lot for me. I'd work with him a lot at a certain points. And he's still around as is for the highest good. But when he would show up for me and I'd talk to him without like going full Tana mode, he'd kind of have this like bumbling, like cartoon character voice. And there was one time I went to do a TikTok. I'm like, I'm going to try channeling Ganesha. I went full Tana mode and it started coming out like that bumbly cartoon character voice. I'm like, I can't do it. Just because I was starting to laugh with what was like happening with that. So it's really about what works for you and what you're drawn to. And I don't think there's anything wrong with working with a deity if you feel called to, and that's for the highest good. In addition to your spirit team, spirit guides, and they can also show up as part of your spirit team if it's for the highest good as well. Hey, Prince Priestess. I was just thinking about you the other day. Hope you're doing great. Yeah, long time no see. See ya. Hope you're doing great. And of course, never pressure to be here. I really trust your own journeys and where you're guided to be. So if that's not here, totally cool. I trust it. Definitely nothing personal at all. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to reassure people. I'm like, am I making it sound worse by like being reassuring? Like, am I making it sound like it is personal when I say that? So hopefully that's not how that's coming across, but it's not how I mean it. But yeah, I'll see. But very good to see you. I hope you're really doing well and doing amazingly in the wide world. Yeah, for sure. I'm getting guided to talk to this one. So Lainey says that they hear Lilith is one that wants to work with them, but they haven't been up for it working with them. Yeah, for some reason, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that one or anything. That's the one deity that I've been kind of getting not to work with personally, or that I've kind of had any type of messages like maybe don't work with them for someone else. I don't know why. Honestly, I don't have any beef with any of that, and I'm not sure because I've had very surprising deities show up for either readings people did for me or that, just me living my life that I never would have, that they're not supposed to be like good, but they were for whatever reason. That's for some reason, and maybe it's something with me. I just have not gotten to work with her. But if you really feel called to it and intuitively it feels right to you and you're getting all the signs, maybe that's right for you. But I'm not sure what's up with that or why. I haven't got the clear, like, this is why you got that yet. So, and again, I don't want to like put it out there, like everyone who works with her is bad or anything like that. It's just, thanks Venus Bee Showers. What I was getting was not to for some reason. And I don't know. It's the only deity I feel like I've been guided to tell people not to work with at a certain time. And I don't have the reason. I said that 10 times now, so I don't need to keep repeating myself, but beep, boop, boop. Time to beep, boop. Yeah. Hopefully that helps, though. I'm not super familiar with these, so I put it off. In the right time, I feel like you'll be drawn to the right ones, and there's no reason to force it. Never personal if I'm here. Good. I appreciate it. Your flow, hair and beard so far. Nice. Been trying to find a happier medium with it all. I remember there was a time where I just let it like grow. And I guess for some reason at the time I thought it looked fine, but then I like trimmed my beard and I got used to that. And then I looked back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, why did I just have the brr without cleaning it up? I don't know. It was fine though. Appreciate the boops and boops. I'm glad. I think the beep boops serve a purpose of joy in this world. And I'm happy to serve that purpose with my beep boops. Cat Lilith was the one I was talking about, which you may or may not agree with. It's just for some reason that's the only one I've gotten to not work with. So and I'm not trying to put fear out there and be like, be afraid of this particular being. There might be a reason for some reason. And there's like really interesting things that happen. I need to approach this topic in the right way, but sometimes there are like ancient like phrases or practices that originally mean like one thing, and then through modern like spirituality or new age, it kind of got twisted to something else. And I do feel like our intent in approaching something can be important. But sometimes it's good to be aware of the original meanings of certain ancient words or practices before we just jump into them headlong and assume it's all that the mainstream purports it to be. Because there definitely have been times where someone would talk about some spiritual practice and I'd be like, oh, that sounds so nice. And then I'd like go to do it and God to be like, no, don't do it. No, don't do it. I'm like, why? It's supposed to help with whatever, da da da. And then it comes out like, it could even be years later that I found out like, oh, this practice in the ancient times was used for like this thing that like is actually meant to take away abundance. And then it's like, that's why I was getting not to do that thing. So it's like, even in modern times, it's taught that it means something else. So I'm not saying like you need to be afraid of all ancient practices and all ancient teachings and things like that. But I think there have been times where I've been guided away from something and I don't know why until even like years later. And I'll be even mad. I'll be mad if like they're like, no, don't listen to that thing. No, don't touch that thing. I'll be mad because I'll be like, but it's supposed to do a good thing. Let me what? And then it's actually not going to do that. I find out years later. So if you ever feel called away from something that everyone else even seems to be like, this fine, trust yourself. And even if it's personal to you, there's like a reason. Yeah. The medium with the happy medium beer. That's funny. Any thoughts on throwing bones? I feel like that one's fine actually. As long as it resonates for you. It could also be something that resonates with like your ancestry on some level back in the day. I feel like that one's totally safe as long as your intention is good, and I feel like you're safe with that. Is what I get, Prince Priestess. That's what I'm getting to say on that one. And by the way, while we're here talking about stuff, I just wanted to, I don't want to throw off what we're focused on right now. I just wanted to say thank you for everyone who has participated so far. Any fun things in my life? Switching my business around. That's probably one of the main things that's going on. Lainey says that they're set up to do charm readings, but they haven't. They're not super called to tarot or charms anymore. Hey, that's okay. Maybe there's something else that'll come in for you, and maybe it is the writing and music, and that's totally fine. I think not everyone, of course, is going to be called to all the same things or meant to take on the same role. If we were all tarot readers, I think society would fall apart. Maybe not, but I mean, if we all did tarot reading to some level, like on the side or for ourselves, but if we were all like, we're all going to make income from tarot readings, it can't be all of us, probably. Maybe there's some possibility where it can be. I don't want to limit it, but I don't know. Like, there's other rules that need to happen for like our toilets to flush, and I don't know. Any thoughts on healers that are called away from healing? I think it can be very specific to each person who might be called away from it, but there could be various reasons, whether they need to focus on themselves or they were just in that phase for a season so they could learn something and maybe bring healing energy into other things they were called to do. I think healing and a healing path doesn't have to be an end all be all, honestly. And maybe there are some people who would shoot me for saying that. I weirdly am getting as I say that, but, or maybe they wouldn't literally, but, sometimes we're just only meant to walk a phase of our journey or our journey, however long we're meant to. I think the role is right for some people more than others, and that's honestly really okay. I think a lot of people can be healers in their own lives for friends, for family members, for themselves more than they realize. And it can be like a responsibility we all have maybe to be the healer for ourselves instead of trying to put it all in someone else's hands. But I think it's okay to also reach out for others when we need help with our healing, if that makes sense. But at the end of the day, like our life can be a lot of our responsibility with our healing, getting to a better place. The choices we make, as difficult as that can be to hear sometimes, it's not always someone else's fault or on someone else to heal us and bring us to healed. If you're signing up for that service, then they should probably be doing their job, but you know what I'm saying, I think. So I think there can be a lot of reasons someone would be like brought away from healing, or whether it's too much on them, or they're just called to something else, or the divine has a different purpose after they learned what they needed to from that role. So, and they'll probably be bringing that into everything else they're doing in the future to some level, maybe, or that energy if they need to. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't know if there was a specific thing you were trying to figure out with that question, but here's a question. Do you think mental illness like schizophrenia can be correlated to a higher sense of spirituality? I get no. I think sometimes people think mental illness means spirituality. I don't get that that's the case necessarily. Personally, I don't know. I'm just getting it's not really linked as much as people think it is. And maybe sometimes there can be similarities, but it doesn't mean it's the same thing, if that makes sense. I know that might be difficult for some people to hear, because I think sometimes they're like, I'm mentally ill because I'm spiritually enlightened. And I just don't get that that's how it works necessarily. I don't know. I'm sorry. And maybe like sometimes, but it's rare and not how it's really supposed to be is what I'm hearing as far as like spiritual evolution. You're not supposed to become mentally ill because you become spiritually evolved, is what I'd say. I know that's a difficult topic, but that's another weird new agey thing going on. Yeah, and I think sometimes that, I think you mean like the mental illness and spirituality thing. What I get is like sometimes it seems like that's the case, but what I'm getting is it's just not. And I think sometimes it becomes an excuse or cover up for someone's mental illness, or something that brings them comfort to hear like, oh, I'm not crazy. But I think it's very important that you're discerning what's actually there. And yeah, and I don't want to talk badly about any of those people. I know that must be a huge struggle or thing to go through. And I would never wish that on myself or others personally on a human level. But it's just, as far as what I get, that's just not the case. I love your sense of humor. You're always cracking me up. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you. Dana says it almost fetishizing things, making it spiritual when it's not. Yeah, I think that's, again, I think some people just want to cover up and they don't want to have to deal with their problems. And spirituality is probably not the way to do that. Because, I know that sucks, but maybe here for some people, but I'm going to be as honest as I can be. And never mind. I was about to go off topic. please go even deeper. I was about to go off in a different way of what I was going to talk about is like, if you remember Tumblr, the social media site that a lot of teens were really into in like the 20 teens, like, or even like 2009, 2012, 2015, maybe even, there was a lot that would happen where people would kind of romanticize depression, or romanticize like anxiety or mental illness, and they'd all kind of like get together in a group and like romanticize it together and kind of like keep each other in that state, it kind of seemed like. And maybe that was my take back then, so maybe I was slightly misreading it, but and it almost kind of like causes people to like go in that direction or like stay in that instead of like seeking healthier alternatives or healing from that or walking out of that to the best of their degree. Cause like it kind of just seemed like they would gas each other up to stay in it, and like to maintain their depressed friendships or their anxious friendships or whatever they were gaining from it. I just don't think that's a healthy way to be. And it just reminded me of the concept. I don't know if it's directly linked to like the one with mental illness and spirituality, where it's like, I don't think celebrating mental illness is really healthy. And a lot of I don't want to like put this out there, but a lot of the worst experiences I've had with people who purport themselves as spiritual, where they would like just say the most like things that would be not like hurtful as in like mean, but like damaging as far as the concepts they'd share and the way they'd share it, were people who had like bigger mental illness and were like either passing it off as spiritual or were like purporting themselves as spiritual when they had this huge mental illness thing going on. Like that's when I saw the most damaging teachings, ways of being. That's where I see most of the weird like negative witchcraft stuff in people. That's where I see most of the weird spirituality that's just not true or aligned, and just people saying weird ass stuff. It's usually when some type of mental illness is involved, and it can be tricky to the layperson because if you're just getting into it, it sounds sometimes similar enough to the rest of the stuff that's out there, or they include just enough of the right love and light into it that it seems like it's on par with what everyone else is saying. But it's not. It's actually just wrong or just not true or just damaging to people even. And I think that's something else to watch out for with being discerning and what's out there is like another example I have that's completely different from that topic is one time I was in like this is before I got into like channeling full bore, but one of the segues the universe brought me through to get into channeling was like a metaphysical Christian stance. And maybe it was just showing me what was out there, or maybe it was just the way I would start to do it and then find the other things that would help me go in the direction that was right for me afterwards. But I remember like another example of this is I remember like the thing that people in like the Christian or community or metaphysical Christian community talk about is like, they're all like, Jesus love. The reason this is this way is Jesus love, Jesus love. And I remember like I was reading this book, I'm like, yeah, Jesus love. And then like there was this article online and this woman used the exact same phrases and things that were like, yeah, love and Jesus love and stuff. But she'd turn it into like, and this is not what I agree with, by the way. I actually vehemently disagree with this, what I'm about to say. What she said in this article was like, it's because of Jesus' love that we must stop accepting gay people or something like awful like that. But they wrap it in the same package. So it's so sneaky sometimes because it sounds just like what the more like on point people are saying, but then they sneak in this like venom and like just twisted mindset and line of thinking. That's just like, what? That's not love. That's not accepting. That's not non-judgment. That's not even what Jesus, according to Christian teachings, would do. I grew up Catholic, so I'm a little familiar with all that. So it kind of reminds me of the same thing where they'll say the same phrases, but it's in the most like damaging context possible. I've had too much personal experience with that, unfortunately, and some of the people I've met. Yeah, Moni, I totally see that. So those are the ways I'll talk to that topic in my personal experiences. Yeah, my dad's side of the family goes to a church that are in a battle about gay people marrying. Yeah, that's a whole thing. I just think like the thing that's interesting about a lot of religion, at least in my experiences with like Christianity, is it's just a lot of judgments and stories and fear wrapped up and handed to people, and then that's like all they know, or that's all their group knows, so they're afraid to like go against that, or like there's the little fear psychological trap of if you go against what I'm saying, then you go to, down under when you die, and it's this whole trap and just weird conglomeration of judgments and stories that aren't even true, and it can be a lot to undo that for people sometimes if they decide to move away from that. So yeah, definitely. And it can be about control, and it's like there's just nothing wrong with anyone being gay or gay marriage or any of that if you look at it through an actual lens of non-judgment and look at it from a higher perspective. There's literally nothing wrong with it at all. It's just people have these stories and judgments and like twist it to fit that because they don't know any better, I guess. But you all probably already are familiar with all that. Not that you do that, but you're familiar that people do that. That's what I meant. Okay, well, I am probably going to close the live soon. I might hang out for one more second, but I'm kind of getting we're hitting our ending here with our hangout. So I hope this was all helpful. The readings, the channeling, the conversations resonated, did whatever was for the highest good, of course. Was maybe even fun on some level, if that was for the highest good. And I have not seen the Barbie movie yet, Moni. I think I'm going to soon, but we'll see. You enjoy the rest of your day too. You're welcome, Sarah C's. It was good. I really appreciated you hanging out with you guys. I so appreciate the likes and the gifts that you guys sent my way during the live. Always appreciated. And always appreciate that I get to show up and channel and facilitate all this for you guys each week. So I really appreciate it and hope you received what was for the highest good for you to receive from all of it. Zebra propped off tonight. Sure did. So I think I'm going to head out. So thank you guys. I'm wishing you well. Actually, you will not see me next week. I'm going on a trip. So I don't think I'll be back next week, but the week after should be back. Okay. You guys take care. And I am sending love and asking for whatever energies would be for your highest good to go to you. Should it be in the highest good? Okay. Take care.